Hi, folks. Welcome. I'm Dan McDermott. This is Google Plus Week, an unofficial look at the world's coolest social network. Joining me from, let's see here, from Rochester, New York, we have Mr. Anthony Clouser. Welcome, Anthony. Always a pleasure.
Hello.
All right. And from Lynchburg, Virginia, we have Mr. Bruce Turner. Bruce, welcome, as always.
Great to be here.
From Frederick, Maryland, for reasons unbeknownst to me, I've invited Craig Schiff to be with us tonight. Craig, always a pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Good to be here.
From where in Canada, Fraser Kane?
I'm on Vancouver Island.
Vancouver in Canada.
Yeah, Vancouver Island, so I'm a little north of Victoria in Canada.
You'll get no sympathy from our other panelist, Jason Salas, who is in the greater metropolitan area of Guam. Welcome, Jason.
I am also
From KUAM TV. I never realized until like the fifth time he was on that that's just Guam spelled with a K. From Colorado Springs, Colorado, we have Mr. Ronnie Bincer. Ronnie, welcome, sir.
Wonderful to be here. Thanks.
And from Salt Lake City,
Hi
Utah,
there.
we have Sheila Dubois. Sheila, always a pleasure to have you. And from New York, we have Mr. Alan Furstenberg.
evening, Dan. How are you doing?
Doing great. We're all fired up in the pregame show. We're all ready. We've got a lot of folks watching, and we are monitoring the comments here. I'll show you the comments, and we'll be reading them and talking about them and answering your questions or comments as we go. So first off, Alan, I saw one of the hottest posts today, probably the hottest post today, was from Guy Kawasaki. It's actually a story, I think, from November of last year, when a complaint was made by Apple against Amazon over the term App Store. And the news today was that Amazon has responded and requested that the judge throw that out, that it's a generic term like shoe store, and that Payless Shoes can't sue, shoe shine shop or whatever, because if they're calling it a shoe store.
Yeah,
so what are your thoughts?
This is an interesting story. I mean, I vaguely remember when it first came up. Basically, Apple is saying that they have a trademark on the term App Store, which is interesting. If they hold a trademark that's intellectual property dealing that's different than copyrights and patents, which we've talked about pretty extensively. And trademarks are actually an interesting class in that they have to defend them in order to keep holding on to it. So if they ever anywhere see somebody violating their trademark, you've got to pretty rigorously defend it. So this was just part of Apple rigorously defending their term. I think it's kind of a weak argument. The term app had been around for a long time before Apple decided to use it. I mean, Java had been using the term applets for over a decade now. Over 15 years. So I think it's a weak argument on Apple's part.
I think so. Let me go to Bruce real quick, and we'll try to bounce through this topic real quick because it's kind of it's just the latest development in an issue from a while back. Bruce, I know you're an Apple fan of their products, but not the company, some of their tactics, and I think that this is just absurd. I mean, it's like saying we were the first to say a shoe store.
Well, no, Dan, you got to realize though it's not absurd. But just by being the first and by asserting that trademark on it does give you a right to do that. That's what a trademark is.
Yeah, it's nonsense because Palm had apps, Handspring had apps. It's ridiculous. I had Trio apps on my Trio. For Apple to make this kind of a contention is just absolute folly to me.
Are they calling them apps or applications? That's what I want to know, because Apple actually started using the term apps. Because remember, like around 2003, everybody was saying web applications, native applications.
But that's a generic term, Jason. Jason, when I was in college,
PC had apps.
When I was in college,
Windows CE had apps.
When I was in college, we had this the guys who would and I did it for like 2 days, and it was boring, and I hated it because I'm bad at sales. Thank God I have a great sales team. But it was these credit card applications to try to suck college kids into signing up for a credit card. And they said we called them apps. I mean, it's a common term. That was in the 80s when I was young, tall, and skinny like you.
Corporate level, was somebody actually putting money behind it, and did they develop a concept from a business standpoint and start calling them actual apps, not the shortened version of like like a job application, because people say like job apps all the time, but actually referring to installed programs that go on some sort of
app store. Isn't that what the trademark is?
The trademark's App Store, and it's.
Here's the other thing, Dan. If
that's different. That's different than apps.
Go ahead, Jason, real quick.
Or is Amazon's use of it? Did they say App Store as a single word with the A and the P capitalized? Whereas iTunes, the App Store is two words. I mean, it's one phrase, but it's made of two words. I believe Amazon, unless I saw the graphic. I mean, I haven't really looked at the story that much, but is App Store a single word where they capitalize the S?
Right, but here's the thing. Even so, Jason, you can argue that that is a confusing violation of their trademark. It doesn't have to be the exact same word. It just has to be confusing enough that people will misunderstand what it is.
The terminology is confusingly similar in that line of legal stuff.
Well, yeah, I think
Confusingly similar. If something's confusingly similar, like you can have McDonald's.
Ronnie, none of the apps in the Apple App Store will work on any devices that can buy stuff from the Amazon App Store. And none of the apps in the Amazon App Store will work on any Apple devices. How can it be confusing?
I'm not trying to defend it. I'm simply saying.
No, I'm just saying. I don't see their argument. I hear what you're saying, Ronnie, but go ahead, Alan.
But Dan, will it confuse a consumer that does not know that? And that's the fundamental question that a court would have to decide.
Indeed.
They'd figure it out pretty quick.
Right, but then would they say that they've been, that Amazon or Apple ripped them off? And that gets into a whole series of issues that Apple is trying to avoid by having a trademark.
We beat up Alan, and then I'm going to go to Tim Cook and Jason. But Alan, we beat up on we're all Google fanboys, even the Apple fanboys in here. We all like Google Plus. We're all users, but we beat them up sometimes because they do PR wrong, and they're not. And the UI's gotten better, but they got some issues because it's a bunch of engineers. And I got to tell you, as far as the PR game, I can't. It's the one area where Apple just sucks. I just this
what?
seems to, I think on this, I think stuff like this among tech people. I guess maybe it doesn't matter to Joe Sixpack.
Among tech people, and that's
maybe
the crucial
that's the
point
issue.
Here.
Dan, the people that latch onto this and make it an issue and attack Apple about it are just people that are looking for any reason to attack Apple anyway.
No, Leo Laporte, this week, guys, Mac Break Weekly, they attack Apple quite regularly.
Yeah, sure they do. They attack Apple because they're trying to get links and they're trying to get people to listen. And if they were just always pro Apple on every issue, then they think probably that they wouldn't have as many listeners. I need a little bit of controversy.
Okay,
stir
Craig,
something up.
Last word on this topic. Craig, honestly, do you think the term that an online store that sells apps, that term should be copyrightable, App Store? Or do you think it's too generic?
Trademark, not copyright.
Trademarkable, sorry.
I think that these big, huge corporations like Apple have way too much money and way too much time on their hands and too many lawyers with too much time on their hands.
You're not answering my question. Do you think it should be trademarkable?
Well, I mean, I'm answering your question. I don't think it should be, and I don't think they should have all these lawyers. I don't think any of the companies should have all these lawyers. I think they should focus on their product and delivering a product. It's like big government. They get big, they get powerful, and then they want to flex their muscles, and it's not good.
It doesn't surprise me.
It's ridiculous, and it stifles innovation.
Yeah, well, I think what's important, now that the innovator is deceased, they should just litigate from now on.
What did Shakespeare say?
No, this is a trademark. Guys, hang on. This is a trademark issue. Okay? Trademark issues are about uniquely identifying the product, which is what Craig just said that they should be doing. Okay? You can't say, on one hand, that they should be innovating and making their products better, and on the other hand, saying that anybody should be able to use the exact same name of your product. What if Samsung released a product called the iPhone? Would you have a problem with that?
That's different.
No, it's not different. Would you have a problem with it? Yes or no?
It's different because it's not a generic term like shoe store. And I understand that they have to defend it, or it can fall into generic territory like Kleenex or something.
Phone is a generic term. The letter I is a generic letter. as has been evidenced by the fact that we've got tons of other non-Apple products with an I in front of them.
Teleprompter is a good example.
Alan, if you have a relatively small company like I do, right? The last thing you want to do is hire lawyers and sue your competition.
But the first thing you want to do, but Craig, the first thing you want to do is protect your brand name.
No, I don't, because I can't afford it. I can't afford to.
So you're willing to have somebody release a product called Hangout 10. You're willing to have somebody release a product called Craig Ship.
I think
yes, because I own the .com. I'd love for them to promote that because I'm going to end up with the traffic.
All right, we got to move. We all agree Apple's a trademark troll now, in addition to being a patent troll. No, I hear what you're saying, Alan. I hear what you're saying. They have to defend themselves, or they risk it going like the term teleprompter. I have a teleprompter. Jason uses one. That is a specific trademark thing. But now you see it used generically all over eBay from all sorts of companies selling products that are not the actual teleprompter branded product. That's an example of what can happen if you don't vigorously defend your patents. Disney is the trademarks, patents, trademarks, copyrights. You know, it's all.
How many people say, "Can you go over to the Hewlett-Packard machine and make me a Xerox copy?"
There. That's another good example. Okay, Jason. So, not to be outdone by Eric Schmidt, who did the Gangnam Style dance with Psy in Korea. Tim Cook did his own performance. I'm sorry. So tell me, this apology came, this obvious snafu. The rumors I heard, we heard again rumors. You know, who knows? But we've heard that what they did, that there was a give and take. They wanted turn-by-turn navigation. Apple did. And Google is the best at that. And Apple didn't have that. They wanted that. And so there were many issues, but that was one issue. Google was not willing to give over that data, the mechanism for turn-by-turn navigation, because they realized that's a big, big thing. All of us have used that, except for Craig Ship, who's never actually used his maps on his phone. But, Jason, let me ask you, what is your take on the Tim Cook mea culpa? Tell us what happened and what your thoughts are.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and defer to the rest of you to actually like break down the semantics of, you know, like exactly where this is going. I would actually like to approach this this argument, if I may, from my standpoint as a member of the media, because I've been fortunate over my career to have covered the way organizations handle PR disasters, say, you know, churches and big companies like Apple and the federal government, the military, schools, and, you know, and local governments and like that. And I honestly think that in terms of the tactical public relations, which we were just talking to a moment ago, I thought the letter that was published on Apple.com was incredibly well crafted. I thought it was judicious in that that Tim Cook actually goes there and he lays out, and in the, I believe, of a 5-paragraph letter, in the second paragraph he says, make sure to prominently note that there are 100 million iOS devices now scattered throughout the world and having ownership. And then he also says, like, well, you know, we realized that people wanted certain things, and then he breaks down all of the product features which may be to come, as you just said. And then he went on to say, if our users aren't happy with those and we realize that, you know, we fell short of the mark, you can certainly use other products. You know, you can add a home screen shortcut from Google Maps or the Nokia mapping product, or Waze, or MapQuest, which I still believe is owned by AOL. And if you notice, Tim didn't mention only a single map provider. Like, he didn't just say just go use Google. And by the same token, he didn't say use everybody but Google. I mean, I thought it was very well worded. And as far as it being a tourniquet for all of the mounting pressure that Apple's gotten because of the media attention that this iOS 6 Maps thing has generated, and, you know, like, and the Tumblr sites and all. Shows like this, you know, constantly raining on their, or pissing on their parade. I thought it was a pretty slick move. I mean, if I was covering Apple, which I do not, I've covered Microsoft and I cover Google now, but if I was covering Apple, I would have said that's a pretty bold move by Tim Cook, because the thing about tactical PR is when you're at that level and you say I'm sorry for something and you issue a big apology like that, that is simultaneously an admission of guilt. And you said, yeah, we messed up. And
Jason,
most companies won't get to that level.
Jason, if I can just ask quickly, what is your take on this, of how Tim handled this compared to when Steve Jobs handled the iPhone 4 antenna problems?
That's a good one. I think this is a little bit more well engineered, and I think maybe coming off the antenna gate thing, Apple maybe would have learned how to deal with a big problem at that scale.
Is it the end of the cult of personality at Apple? In that,
no, because
you know what I mean. It was the founder. It was it was hero worship. Steve Jobs was in charge. It was. Whereas now, this letter was obviously written by the PR committee and probably approved by Tim. I'm speculating here, but we've seen it's like a State of the Union speech or President Obama's UN address. That was a speech by committee. You know, everyone gets their thing in there. Is this? I don't know. Maybe that's a weird tangent. I mean.
No, I think because, you know, and also what it's going to do for Apple's devout community and, you know, for Apple's fanboys, they're just people that really believe in the company are just going to say, hey, great, you know, we're willing to wait another 4, 5, 6 months while Apple, you know, irons out the kinks in its mapping problem. Because, you know, because we believe in the company and we've got no problem with that. Of course, you're going to get all the naysayers and all the haters are just going to say, oh, you know, like, and they're going to make a bunch of memes and they're going to say, yeah, we screwed this up. And they're going to say, oh, Apple apologized for the JFK assassination. Apple apologized for, you know, the U.S. not winning the gold medal this year. You know, and you know that's going to happen. And for the next
but didn't
week,
it kind of silence the meme stories? You know what I mean?
You know,
it did. It accomplished its goal.
The problem.
Go away.
But I think it struck those. I mean, I haven't seen anyone sharing funny pictures, Jason, since his apology. I think it accomplished its goal.
Well, it had mostly died down by that time
Alan,
anyway.
Please.
It had mostly died down by that time anyway. We've got this good comment, though. I can't believe Cook mentioned Google in his apology. Steve would never have done that. I'm not sure that's true, to be honest. I think that if Cook hadn't mentioned Google, hadn't mentioned the elephant in the middle of the room, then everyone would have said, well, you know, Apple, this is clearly a vendetta issue. Apple's trying to hide something, and they would have clamored to have Google release it. As it stands, now what it is Google kind of got the rug pulled out from under them a little bit.
I saw a thing, a tweet I saw today, and I shared it. It said, Tim Cook apologizes for, I'm paraphrasing, Tim Cook apologizes for mapping snafu. And then in all caps, Steve Jobs parked in handicapped spaces. I mean, it was like different, but, you know, we'll see. All right. Speaking of,
just one thing, you know, what you were saying in our previous topic, where you say, you know, Apple doesn't get PR, and yet they're, you know, they said they make all these PR disasters because they're just engineers. I actually believe the opposite. I believe that this was a very well crafted and well delivered PR movement, like Alan said. You know, like they learned from what they had with Antenna Gate, and I think the thing about the App Store, that's just the nature of corporate litigation. You know, if you can cover your assets and if you can use the legal system to try and gain some sort of competitive leverage on your rival, then why wouldn't you? I mean, that's why you have lawyers.
Oh, and when I said that their PR thing, I think the constantly suing people and it just, I think it's more arrogance than anything else. Go ahead, Craig.
I don't think most people that buy their products care about all that. I think most people that buy their products are buying what they perceive to be a quality product that will work, that their friend uses, that their friend told them will work, that it's a quality product, and that's it. And as far as the maps thing, I think most average Joe user of these phones could give a rat's rear end about the maps. I think this is all conjured up by the tech media and so forth. I think most people that use the maps will probably be very impressed with them. So.
Okay.
But it doesn't cost anything
over.
to apologize.
That's not accurate. I mean, they put things under oceans. I mean, insane. Anthony, do you have a
It affects a small number of people.
Anthony, go ahead.
Kevin Bryan says that Apple Maps will get better, but it hurts their standing as a magical. It's
aspirational.
Yeah, thank you, brand.
Indeed. Good comment.
Can I have one more thing?
Okay, Jason, and then I want to ask you about this next thing before you got to roll out.
Okay.
Or we'll go to Fraser. Go ahead.
Okay, just look and put into perspective, once again, Apple's PR approach to this, and then let's parallel it with the way Google handles things, the way Facebook handles things, and the way Microsoft will handle things. And real quickly, Apple has always been the kind of company that takes the approach like they say, hey, we aspire to make world-class products, and we understand that our customers expect that of us. And we pass that down to the customers and say, if you're willing to spend a little bit more money, you too, by association, can be held to a higher standard. You can be iconoclast and you can be distinct. What we've seen with Google, particularly since Google Plus came out, is Google will actually be, surprisingly humble. I wrote about this today on my stream, and I said, we've seen Vic and Dotra on many occasions, even amid high praise, Vic will go on and say, yeah, we realize that, we've created something cool. We've got a long way to go. We know there are issues. We're working on it, and we're listening to our customer feedback. And so by that merit, they're not making themselves susceptible to be bitten by the hubris bug. What Facebook historically does is Facebook will just say, hey, we've got a new idea. We're pushing it out to everybody, whether you like it or not. And if it's broken, we're going to fix it while it's in play. And then during the years when I was covering Microsoft in the early 2000s, their approach would be, you know what? We're going to push stuff on people, whether they like it or not. We're going to tell people it's great, even if it's not. And then when the next version of our product comes out, then we'll say, that's the nearest, greatest thing. And then we'll admit that, the last one wasn't as great as it could have been. But we're always going to tell people we're on top of our game. And it's funny how the four companies take those distinct approaches, because each one has to speak with a specific voice and have a distinct personality to get people to buy into their concept. And, with respect to Pastor Bruce, it's almost like religion. You have to have a definite approach in appealing to your constituencies.
Okay, let me get your take on something real quick, Jason. Then we're going to go to Fraser. I want to get both y'all's takes on this. My comment on that, and also George Cozy asked, who do you think's better at PR, Google or Apple? I think Google's getting better at PR now because they have created, they can call it a layer or whatever they want to call it, an upgrade, but they've created a social network. And to promote it, they've gotten their bigwigs like Vic and Dotra and others and Chichu on the social network. And so they're sort of in these situations where they're engaging with their users. They're coming out of their cloistered engineering cubicles and actually talking to real people out there. And so I think they're getting better at PR because they sort of have to. So I think it's been a godsend on so many levels.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this has been one of the biggest changes, one of the big unexpected things, the benefits that Google has gotten out of this new social network is before I didn't know anybody at Google. Now I probably know 10, 20 people at Google on a relatively first name basis. And if I discover a problem, I can reach out to someone, or if someone at Google wants my feedback, they can reach out to me, and it's this porous membrane in between the inside and the outside of the company, and this didn't exist before this social network. By eating their own dog food, they've actually gotten to the point where they do have this very much more approachable connection between inside the company and the regular public. I think this is one of the big discoveries that they're in the process of making.
It's sort of like Rupert Murdoch. When Rupert Murdoch started tweeting, most CEOs would never do that. They're too guarded, Like you don't see Larry Page and Sergey just sort of throwing stuff out there on a whim. But you see Rupert weighing in on stuff, and Dan, now it's kind of making it cool for this. Go ahead, Alan, and then we got to go back to Fraser.
Once upon a time in Microsoft, Bill Gates said, hey, the world has my email address. Anybody can email me, and they will get a response from me. Now, yes, he had a staff of people who were fielding the questions, but that was Bill Gates doing essentially the same sort of thing. You've got people like Zuck, who are the CEOs who are out there and at least pretending to be out there. You don't see the same thing from Page and Schmidt, and you don't see them. You don't really see that yet.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
The only company I hate more than Apple is Facebook. Go ahead, Fraser.
Well, I was going to say, Alan, think about the connection that you have with the API team. They invite you into their Hangouts to talk about the developments to the API and get your feedback directly. Wouldn't you much rather have a direct connection with the people at Google who are actually involved in making these changes than attempting to get the attention of someone really, really high up in the company? I don't think Page or Sergey Brin really have enough time for that. But I really appreciate the fact that I can reach out to Jenny or or Natalie or those people and give them my feedback.
But if
Chichu was in the Hangout last week.
But if we look at that again, we see that Apple has their product forums, and they've done the same thing for years. Google has their product forums, and they've done more or less the same thing for years. This is, the introduction of the social network layer.
Part of the difference, part of the big difference is Google was always hidden. It was always behind the scenes. They were never visible. You could never talk to anyone, and now you can. So that's one of the bonuses of Google+. Now, if only they'd let YouTube start showing up, that would be, bonus.
Well, and again, with the Apple thing, look at the timing of when this letter from Tim Cook came out. It came out on a Friday afternoon, which means that the national media is going to cover it just enough, but they're not going to be able to linguistically dissect it, where they do exhaustive stories for the next 3 or 4 days because the weekend crew is going to come in. It's going to get coverage, but not exhaustive coverage. Wall Street's going to have a little bit of time to digest it, but it's not going to come out tomorrow and have the stock price dramatically affected like it would if this happened in the middle of the week. So I mean, it was tactical. I mean,
take out the trash day. Take out the trash day.
It's very well played, I thought.
All right, real quick, I want to ask Jason and Fraser has a topic. Eric Schmidt was in Korea. He was debuting the Nexus 7 over there, and he said some interesting stuff. I'm going to start with Jason, then go to Fraser, and then Fraser's topic. He said he was talking about a lot of stuff. He did the Gangnam Style. We have the links to all the stories we're talking about underneath the video, so you can check them out. Not everywhere while it's live, but afterward it'll be there, and it's in the event on my profile. But he said patent wars prevent choice, prevent innovation, and I think that is very bad. We are obviously working through this and trying to make sure that we stay on the right side of these issues. So ultimately, Google stands for innovating as opposed to patent wars. And then he said, and this is, again, this is spin, right? Just like Tim Cook's, I say Tim Cook loosely, his committee's letter that he signed. I think that one of the worst things to happen in the last few years has been the belief that somehow there's so many patents in the mobile world, an estimated 200,000, that are overlapping and complicated and so forth, that one vendor can stop the sale of another vendor's phone or devices. With respect to Apple patents, the best thing we can tell, there are plenty of prior arts, and I don't want to go beyond that. So he's kind of addressing this whole. They're in a proxy war with Apple via Samsung and Motorola and other companies. Any thoughts on this, real quick, Jason? This whole thing, and then we'll go to Fraser.
Again, I think just from a media standpoint, it's and Alan brought this up, and very wisely so earlier, is that Google's whole PR approach, and particularly through Eric Schmidt during his tenure when he was CEO, it's not that Google's bad at PR, which is what everybody just so desperately wants to see. They do things differently, to badly capitalize on Apple's marketing ploy. They're just very unorthodox. They have a very deliberate focus on what they want to achieve. They just go about it differently. Eric Schmidt says things that are that most other CEOs wouldn't say, and he delivers it in a way that most other CEOs would not. But there is a very distinct point to it and everything. And I mean, it is a cohesive plan of attack. I mean, I don't think a lot of the stuff that that comes out of there is at all random. I mean, it's all been prepared, and it's all been discussed and paid a lot of attention to prior.
Okay, let me go to Fraser.
It's just their take on. They don't do things the way everybody else does. It's just their way of doing things.
Okay, let me go to Fraser. Do you have any thoughts on Eric Schmidt's thing, and before we go on to your topic?
Not really.
Okay.
No.
Well,
no,
you had something. You had something you wanted to talk about. Go ahead.
Sure, yeah. So there was a big update to sort of in the webmastering world this week called sort of update to a thing called AuthorRank, Google's AuthorRank system. And so the way this works is if you do a search on Google for a certain term, for some of the search results, you're going to see a little picture come up with the search results. You're going to see the person's sort of a link to them in Google+. You're going to see the number of circles that person is in. And the thinking has been for a long time that the long-term plan for this with Google is that, the actual personal authority of the writer of an article is going to start to influence the search results. And this doesn't exist right now. Right now, you've got the domain authority, so the authority of the overall website in Google, and you've got, some of the off-site and on-site factors, but the actual who wrote the article didn't matter and doesn't matter. But it's starting to matter now. And so there's two things that happened this week. One thing is that all of the people who have already sort of implemented this authorship system, and you can do a search on how to do this, are starting to get emails from Google saying, congratulations, you've set up your authorship correctly, and sort of runs through some of the ways it's going to look. The second thing, and this was sort of discovered by or has been sort of investigated by AJ Cohn, who's one of our family here on Google Plus, is that if you do a search and then you go to the website where that happens, so if you do a search for, I don't know, if you do, for example, Samsung dispute or something, and you go to the page and it's written by someone who has this authorship, and you hang out there for a little while, about 2 minutes or so, and then you click back in the browser, you won't get the search results that you had before. You'll now get an expanded search result that shows about 3 links to other articles that writer has written. And the thinking is going to be, at some point, Google is going to start to incorporate this personal authorship into its overall ranking algorithm, and the people who have more personal authority in the sort of Google Plus ecosystem, they're going to rise higher up in the search rankings. And what this is going to be is this is going to be a massive leverage to kind of push like a crowbar onto websites to sort of really encourage them to get active on Google Plus, to help drive and get their people involved in circling them on Google Plus in order to have their rankings reflect this authority in the world.
Okay, I got a question for you on this, but first let me say, Leilani, join now. Jason, nobody else join. Nobody can join. Leilani Prado in Brazil, join because you're our next topic. So please come in now. You just go to my profile and click join because you're invited. Okay, Fraser, what's I know that if I interact with someone, okay, Jeff Jarvis, Robert Scoble, whoever, if we're constantly plus one or whatever, then if I search for something, the search plus your world will show that up. How is in my search results if I'm looking for something? How is this different from that? Can you explain the intricacies there?
So in the search plus your world, what's happening is that your personal search or your personal interactions with different people on Google Plus will be brought into your search results. So you might, there might be a generic search result, and then your personal interactions, if any of your friends or people that you follow on, you've got circled on Google Plus, have written on that topic, then those results will be shuffled in. And I don't know about most folks, but I've actually found that's actually been really helpful. It's actually been quite pleasing how well the search results have improved with this information in it. But this is kind of taking it to the next level, that if a person has authority within this ecosystem, that authority will come out into the overall search results. And so if, for example, if you don't have me in a circle, and you do a search, if I have a lot of authority, chances might be higher that my articles are going to show up for the millions of people who are searching for topics, not just the people that happen to be within my circle. So it could get to the point that the personal authority, if you've built up a lot, you can imagine, I don't know, Maureen Dowd or I guess I was going to say Fareed Zakaria, but maybe that's not so appropriate anymore. But you can imagine, a tech reporter, an MG Siegler, right, who has a ton of authority and cred. If they go to some small blog and they write an article, because of their personal authority, they'll be able to help bring up that smaller blog in the search results.
So it's sort of a combination, because they did this with trends and something else, which is another topic. So it's sort of a combination of search plus your world, but not necessarily personalized. It's more like judging Wikipedia over Ask.com.
Yeah, it's just right. It's just another. I mean, the way, if you know how the search engines work, right? That the way documents are ranked on search engines is a lot of it is based on the number of links that point at a website. The more links you have, the more your site may rise and fall in the rankings. And
that's what made Google.
Dollars. That's right, and that's real dollars, and so
that's how they're able to play with the social network stuff.
And so there's massive economies in attempting to game the system, to buy links, to artificially boost your rank. And so Google has been searching for another way, and a completely alternative way to judge rankings at this, in the same way, to be able to sort of figure out, this is a more authoritative source than that. This probably deserves to be higher in the search rankings, and they have like 300 variables that all work all at the same time. But this personal authority is going to be very difficult to game, because you can imagine they can watch the personal interactions of hundreds of millions of people as they share and communicate with each other, and be able to flush out the artificial people from the system. So it's going to be a new way that's very difficult to game. You have to be very authentic, and so I think the expectation is that they were going to roll this out. It hasn't influenced the search results yet, but now with this message that came out this week to all the webmasters who did it, with these new sort of discoveries that are being made, it's starting to come in around the edges, and I think it's a lot of steps forward. And what you're seeing is you're seeing a lot of the SEO sites, a lot of marketing sites start to take this very seriously, and they're saying, oh, you didn't think you needed to care about it before, but now you actually do need to take Google Plus very seriously. And so we're moving from the it's a ghost town to you kind of need to take it really seriously. And that seems to be the message that I'm seeing again and again now everywhere is people starting to take it very seriously.
And Fraser, it's true that it also ties into all of Google's products. Like if you're on YouTube, because YouTube is their product, you are seeing the same connection, especially if you've got your personal name connected to your personal name on YouTube now. You're seeing all kinds of extra, what I call Google goodies, coming into line, again, establishing authority.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's this establishment of authority that seems to be moving to the fore, and probably over the next couple of years is going to have a bigger and bigger impact.
I think it's interesting, and I want both your and Ronnie's take on this, Fraser. This is happening at about the same time that we're seeing Bing is now incorporating clout scores in some ways to accomplish the same sort of thing, tying people and their credibility to topics.
Yeah, absolutely, right? So yeah, if you do search on Bing, you're going to see a person's personal authority in clout start to influence the search results as well. And it's the same process, but Bing, Microsoft doesn't have a social network, and so they can't extract these social interaction data the way that Google Plus can. And this is really one of the main purposes of Google Plus, is this ability to map out these human relationships, to understand things that are trending and things that are being popular, and to use that information to inform the search engine, which is the cash cow. So Google has no need to really monetize Google Plus at all, because it's already paying the rent 1,000-fold by giving Google this information.
By pumping data in, right? Google Plus becomes the data source, and not just a data source, but a metadata source.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's helping build their relationship graph. What's your thoughts on this, Ronnie?
My thoughts are, it's not only just the fact that what we're talking about, it's also that Google Plus allows us people to reveal all kinds of information about ourselves, such that they can harvest that and sell it to advertisers, so that the pay-per-click can totally target exactly to where I am interested once I do get into a place where ads show up, like Google search.
Yeah, but that's a good thing. We want that.
Yeah, I do. I agree.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that the authority thing is sort of an extra that I'm not sure that everybody understood or realized this is another game that they're playing.
Yeah. I'm sick of untargeted ads. I want the targeted ads. I want this hyper-targeted ads, right?
You want Minority Report.
Yeah, totally. Mr. Kane, I can tell that you're hungry. Would you like some lunch now? Yes, please.
The only problem with targeted ads is I end up spending more money.
Right.
Then they're working.
That's right. They sure do.
Yeah. I've held this contention for a long time that, advertising will get solved when it just sounds like advice that you can use from your best friend. That's the future. Oh, you're muted, Dan.
We can't hear you, Dan.
Sorry. I've said many times before that sometimes I'll do a Google search. I don't Bing regularly, but I'll do a search, and I'll find that the little ad, that sometimes the guys who make the ads up for the keywords are better, and the results you get on the right side from the ads are actually more relevant than the actual mainline search results. So yeah, I agree with you. Let me. It's a constant evolution of the algorithms that make Google, the top search engine, and the reason we all voluntarily choose to use it over its Lycos, and I think, but Craig, you still use Lycos, right, Craig?
Yeah, I use Lycos
right. All the time.
So I think I guess my last point was just that if you start to see a big influx of people, of webmasters taking Google Plus really seriously over the next couple of months, this is why. what's
That's
happening,
awesome.
rolling
Yeah.
out this week.
And they're going to continue. You know, they've got this. Google has an incredible footprint, and they said in the very beginning, they said we've shipped the Plus part. Now we're going to ship the Google, and they're doing it. And no, you know, it's coming, and you know, it's the sleeping giant. You know, is being awakened.
Part of the question here is whether it's supercharged right now and it's going to change later. Because I get the feeling that it's supercharged right now. They're just testing out things, and you can do stuff in social now and make huge effects in search results that just seem inappropriate at times.
Yeah.
And so whether they keep it that way or not is, you know, I'm assuming they're going to tone it down or throttle it down eventually once they get everything working.
I think that's going to be years and years away. But no, I mean, I've had a couple of people, I have a lot of people now coming out of the woodwork asking me, like, hey, how come you've got 300,000 people circling you on Google+? Like, how did you do that? And I'm like, well, just take a look at all of the essays I've been writing for the last 6 months, a year, right? Warning you that this would all happen. So,
okay, let me. I'm gonna go to Leone in Brazil. To set this
I've got to
up.
run, Dan. I just want,
Yes, sir.
thank you
Go
very
ahead.
much
Go ahead, Fraser. Sorry.
I've got to run. So just thanks for having me
Thank
this
you so
weekend.
much. Always a
it's
pleasure.
a wonderful show. I love watching it. And I'm really glad I could show up and participate. So keep on inviting me.
Absolutely. You're always welcome.
All right. See you guys later.
All right. Okay, so I'm gonna go to Leone next, and I want to say, just set this up. There were. This is unrelated, but it sort of came up at the same time. There was a lot of press, and we talked about it last couple weeks, about this anti-Islam video that was released and has caused rioting and stuff in many countries, and a lot of people have gotten killed over this video. And it's really an awful, awful acted trailer for an awful movie. It's the most amateur thing I've ever seen. But they're getting all worked up, and people are manipulating crowds and into thinking this is relevant in some way. It's not. But anyway, because of that, this next story didn't get that much attention until an arrest warrant was issued for the head of Google Brazil. It got a lot of attention in Brazil. So I have asked Leone, who is in Brazil, to join us tonight. And apparently, I guess what happened is that there was a video, against the mayoral candidate, and I don't remember what town it was in, but it was talking about, it was making allegations
Mato
about.
Grosso do Sul.
Where is it?
Mato Grosso do Sul. Campo Grande is the city.
Awesome. And Alan, I need you to spell that for us and put it up on this. No, I'm just kidding. But anyway, so there was a video made on. It was posted on YouTube, and it was talking about an allegation of a paternity issue, a case, some kind of personal drama, and there are strict rules that you cannot discuss. You cannot disparage the character or say naughty things or anything mean against the candidate. I'm sure that Barack Obama and Mitt Romney would both enjoy a law like that here. But that's strictly enforced, I think, since the 60s in Brazil, right? So
Yep.
a judge ordered YouTube to take this down, and they said it meets our guidelines. We're not taking it down. Then they issued an arrest warrant for the CEO of Google, and then they did Alan accomplish his goal? There you go. See, he cheated. He did a quick Wikipedia check.
I didn't do a Wikipedia check. It was in one of the articles that you cited.
Okay, excellent work. So anyway,
Leone calls it Campo Grande.
Indeed.
So
they arrested the guy, or detained him, whatever you want to call it. But he was, involuntarily taken to the station and questioned and released. And then now YouTube is taking down the video. So I'm curious. To us, this seems insane in America because we have freedom of speech, unless you're Julian Assange. We have freedom of speech. It's pretty cut and dry. But other countries have differing, obviously Iran and China have completely different views on this. Someone like England has, they have a little bit less than we do. A celebrity can get an order for a newspaper not to publish something that's embarrassing against them, whereas here there's a dozen people following celebrities. taking embarrassing pictures. So we're sort of one extreme, and Iran is the other extreme, or Syria. Where is Brazil in this mix, and what are your general thoughts on this story?
Well, not my general thoughts, but I think everybody here in Brazil is that the laws are kind of crazy. And also the big issue here is the internet. The internet is so new that people here don't know how to deal with it. They don't know how it works. The internet works very differently from television or newspaper or anything like that, where with TV you can just ask for the TV to take it down and not put it on air anymore, some kind of video. But on the internet you can't do that. If it's on the internet and it spreads out, you can't take it off of the internet, you know. It's just out there. Someone can copy the video and put elsewhere. So once it's on the internet, it's gone. You don't have the domain or you know how to control it anymore. And the people still have that vision that it's like TV. You can just take it off the air. So the laws kind of need to change and adapt on the internet. And you know, it's very crazy that you can ask for someone to take down something because of an election law and because of freedom of speech. We clearly don't have it. You know, we are trying to achieve it, but we have so many crazy laws and stuff that we basically can't do much, and we can't say anything that is bad about a candidate because they will just run over you. And you know, and also with this crazy thing, not only my opinion, but a lot of Brazilians over the internet, on Twitter, on Facebook, because Brazil has like crazy corruption cases. And everybody keeps saying, I don't know how they can just arrest a Google director and then not arrest the politicians that are just doing bad things to the country. You know, they're stealing money, they're not giving the money in schools, education, healthcare, you know, where the money should go. And how can we arrest someone because of a video and, you know, not give it a hardcore punishment for a politician like that? So it's just crazy. But in Brazil, we take things very lightly. So many people make jokes about it. You know, there was a lot of jokes and stuff like that.
Let me ask you. I know some other folks here, Alan and Bruce and Craig, may have some questions for you, and Ronnie. But let me. First of all, the video in question here, for which he was arrested because it wasn't taken down, is the consensus? Is there a consensus on whether the information in the video was accurate, or was it blatantly false, or what? Because I have no idea. I'm asking. Or do we know?
I also don't have any idea, because it was just an accusation video, so you can't really prove it. But I think he would not be so bothered if it wasn't true, you know.
One of the things that's so surprising is that this is coming from Brazil, because I mean, they've come a long way from the Perón days, and there was a 60 Minutes piece about one of your previous presidents that kind of was sort of the president or brought in this big revolution in the economy. You are the shining star of South America. It's amazing that you guys have become largely completely independent of needing foreign oil because you're through innovation, and also because you are lucky enough to have the perfect climate to grow sugarcane. We've talked about this before. Whereas in America, we're the perfect climate for corn, And I think sugarcane is like 10 times more efficient to produce ethanol than corn. So we'd have to plant the entire land mass of the United States, whereas you guys can, to produce enough oil for us, but you guys can do it. And so you're in so many ways, the economy and things, you are seen as this example for many countries in the world to look up and emulate. And then we see this, and it's like it's shocking to us because we have such fond thoughts about Brazil as an emerging, economy, a wonderful example for others. That's what's so surprising. So you're saying that that's sort of in some ways, just a good PR campaign.
Yeah. And I think also it's, like I said, just because Brazil have some crazy laws and not the complete understanding of how the internet works, So the laws kind of don't apply on how the internet works, but they want to make it apply anyway. So they just need to figure it out and change the laws and adapt a little bit. And it's just Brazil have many crazy laws, and I think the candidate was a little bit unfortunate because what he could do is just make a PR like a new video explaining that he did not did those things. He could just do some PR work and publish a video or something on the internet, and instead of asking Google to take it out and doing, making them arrest the Google president and stuff. And so it would give a better repercussion of it. And instead of this, because everybody sees now and say he's wrong, he's wrong to do that. He overreacted, so he gave himself bad press when he could just make a video explaining himself and stuff and taking something good out of it. So it was just a train wreck from the beginning.
Do you think this guy's going to win the election?
To deal with it. I don't think so, but I don't know.
Google's popular in Brazil?
Yeah. It is. It's the #1 website with access in Brazil. And everybody had Orkut, which is the first social media from Google. And like everybody had it, now they moved to Facebook, but it was very popular. People really love Google in Brazil. So, I also, just one thing, because I also have a breaking news that another Google employee or Google, he's actually the finance director of Google. He is also being arrested because of something. The finance director, Luis Pinto Baltazar, he is being arrested for the city of Ribeirão Preto. A judge from that city sent an arrest warrant to him, so he needs to go to the federal police, just like the other Googler that was arrested 2 days ago. He needs to go there and to sign the same agreement that the other Googler had to, because the Darcy Vera candidate, she asked Google to take it down a blog who was saying bad things about her. And because of the election code, Google, Google said they wouldn't, because of the election code, they need to, and then they sent the arrest warrant to the finance director. So he also will be arrested if he doesn't go to the federal police and sign the agreement.
All right, I know some other folks have questions for you. I'm going to start with Alan. My comment on this, and I'm going to ask Alan, and then you could take it here for a couple minutes. But what's strange to me is in the Islam thing, and in other cases where they've like before they left China, when they talked about things, that on the one hand they're all about a free and open web, as we saw with their strong statements about SOPA, which unfortunately my congressman co-authored. But we're seeing with the anti-Islam video, they said it's been removed in countries where it is illegal, right? But then on these other smaller issues, like this mayoral thing, and it's interesting how they're pushing back.
Well, I mean, Google pushed back.
Go ahead, Alan. Please take over.
Google pushed back on the Islamic video issue for a while as well. I mean, it wasn't until they got some significant pressure from the governments in question that they took it down in those places and just those places. I mean, when the U.S. government said, hey, have you thought about removing the video? Google said, no, we haven't. So, it's clear that Google pushes back as hard as they can, and only when they are forced to. In this case, it sounds like they were forced to by a fairly high-level court. Do they finally give in on this sort of thing? I mean, from what I've read, basically they were making the legal argument that they were what we would call in the U.S. a common carrier. They're not responsible for the video. They're just, transmitting the video. Sort of like, in this case, it would be sort of like if a movie was made out of it on film, that you arrest the company that printed the pictures. That seems to be the same sort of analogy. Would you say that's a fair analogy?
Yeah, I would. Someone, a news reporter from Brazil, actually said that arresting Google president for a video, it's like punishing someone that did the asphalt of a road because of road accidents. You can't punish someone because of something they don't have a fault. They just have the platform. The people, the users, are the ones who go there and post the content, so they can't really be responsible for that. And also, like the Google, they asked Google to remove the video and also to take down Google in that city, in that state, for 24 hours, which is crazy, because how do you want to take down a service because of one video? That
does seem incredibly extreme. Let me ask you this: how do you think the public would react if Google actually caved into that kind of a demand?
I think it wouldn't be good, because also it would open precedents, because a lot of people would just, someone said a bully thing about me, someone called me a bad name, so I want you to take down the video. I want you to take down the video because I'm not dressed in a cute outfit. So people would just go crazy. And Google is actually trying to give Brazil a freedom of speech, because people in Brazil believe they have it. Like, the government paints a picture to make people believe they do have free speech, but in reality, that they don't. People just don't, because I know in the election of the president that everybody talks so fun about, he actually took down a few bloggers or paid them to talk nice things about him. So whoever said anything bad about him, he either would go there and take the site down, or would just pay them to say nice things about him, which is crazy. So they made you believe you have free speech, but you actually don't.
Okay.
So
let's head to.
I have a question. Yeah,
Okay.
you've obviously you know, you're in the country and everything, and you've seen a lot of evolution, both as regarding Brazil's economy that Dan addressed, the political situation Dan also addressed. Let me ask you, what's your gut feeling on approximate length of time it's going to take for Brazil to sort out this phenomenon called the internet that allows for this freedom of expression and speech? What's your guess on when that will happen?
The thing is, the government, they do have a quite understanding of the internet, because they work it very, very well on making campaign ads to fund get money to fund elections. So they do have a great understanding of how the internet works. And what they try to do is, because they understand so well, they try to control the people like this, so they don't have free speech. So until the people understand what the government is doing, we won't have better laws, you know, because for the internet, because they actually know how to work for their own advantage. Because the president, they even hire the same PR that President Obama had for his election on the internet. So they do have a real good understanding on how the internet can work and for them, you know. But until the people realize they don't have free speech, nothing is going to work here in Brazil. And the problem in Brazil is the corruption. The politicians are very, very corrupt in Brazil. So they will do anything they can to give you like fun. They paint a picture that everything's okay when they do bad things. Until Brazil have education where the people can understand the things that are happening, why the politicians act some way, why they don't give education, why they don't give health care, you know, those kinds of things, we will never evolve. The politicians need to invest in education, because a lot of Brazilians can't, like most of Brazilians can't read. And that is a real bad thing, because when you have some people that don't even know how to read, how can you trust them to vote on someone that can make the country change, you know?
Well, I have an interesting point. A question with that: if, for example, these things that we're in right now, these Hangouts, if Hangouts are like TV, in other words, Brazilians, whether they read or not, they can watch it, they can listen to it. Do you think that the Hangout technology is something that could actually change the freedom of speech situation in Brazil?
I think it does, because people in Brazil are actually accessing the internet more. Like poor people in Brazil, they even save up money to go to places that have a computer and where they can access the internet. So poor people are becoming more aware of how the internet works and accessing everything and having the same kind of information that everybody else have it, you know. So, but the problem is, you can give the information, but without the power of understanding it and really knowing what people are saying, because you can say orange and someone will understand you said pink, you know. So until you have people that can understand, can hear orange and understand orange, you know, if you don't have that, you have nothing. So Brazil really needs education to evolve, you know.
Let me ask you this next topic, Leon. I'll start with this. Tesla, because Brazil, as I said earlier, is largely how independent of other countries are you on oil?
I don't know.
But it's up
I
there.
really
I mean, because
don't know the numbers.
for folks who don't know, Brazil is a big sugarcane area, and they make ethanol, and they're really into they're self-sufficient largely, which is a dream that a lot of countries have. Or is that not accurate?
No, you keep having this idea that Brazil have a great thing with ethanol and stuff. It doesn't work like that, because the ethanol price is almost the same as gasoline. It should be very, very low, but it's not. So if it's almost the same, people will just buy gasoline because it's not an advantage for them, you know. So Brazil is not using ethanol in their own advantage. They're not making the price low. We are still having to buy crazy prices of gasoline, and even though we also have a big oil company, which is Petrobras, who discover and gets oil from under the sea and stuff. But still, we are just getting gasoline instead of ethanol because they just make the price almost the same. So it's not an advantage, even because I live in an area that is very, very hot. We have 100 Fahrenheit almost every single day. And before, when the cars were not so good, like 10 or maybe 15 years ago, I don't know, when I was a kid, lots and lots of cars in my city exploded because they used ethanol. You would just the heat would just make the car hot and make it explode. So a lot of people were afraid of that happening. Now we have better technology in cars that it's very unlikely to happen, but still, if you put ethanol instead of gasoline, it can just how do I say this in English? You would just turn in air. Can you understand that?
Yeah. Okay,
You
so
just evaporates or something.
well, let me
So
ask you this:
you don't-
Tesla, and I'll get your reaction to this, and then I want to get Ronnie's reaction and other folks. Tesla announced that they were going to. Let me preface it this way: the big problem with electric cars is folks are like, I can't drive a long distance. It can't be my only car. A totally electric car. So Tesla has the Model S, which is not an every man's car. It's 80 grand to 100 grand. So this is for the well-to-do. But what they've said was that they're going to roll out a national network of supercharging stations for this purpose. Now, folks typically would charge at home or at their destination overnight, while they're sleeping. But in the event that you have to drive across, and they're starting in California, and they've actually got 6 of these stations up there. That he said that they're going to build out over the next 2 to 4 years a nationwide network of charging stations. They're solar powered, because the co-founder of Tesla is also on the board of Solar City, so they did a deal there, and they're actually going to generate more electricity from the solar panels than they use to charge the cars, and so it's going to introduce more electricity into the grid than they consume. It's going to be free for the car owners, so you'll be able to pull into a Sheetz or a Wawa or a Flying J or whatever gas station and charge your car for free. The other thing was we saw this famous episode. It was a Fox News host who was beating up on the Volt, and he did a thing. I don't know what the mileage is before the hybrid engine kicks in, but it was like 25 miles, I think, before on pure electricity after a long charge. And so what Tesla's doing is they're trying to answer all these criticisms. You'll be able to go across the country, and you'll be able to charge for free. You'll be able. It's not just burning electricity somewhere else because it's all solar powered, so there's no fossil fuels involved. It's the beginning of a revolution. So I'm curious, real quick, what do you think about this coming from a country that has touted its ethanol innovation, which you're discounting? You're saying it's not there yet, as we've discovered here in the United States. What do you think? I think that's the key. I think a purely electric car, when you can have solar panels in places like Brazil, will be perfect for this. As the technology's gotten dramatically better as far as the efficiency and the cost over the years. But I think this is genius. What do you think?
I think it is, and I think that's the way that the world is going to almost have to work, because we are just ending our resources. So we really need to work on more efficient and less damaging ways to get energy, So, and I think that's really the way, and I really wish Brazil would use more the resources we have, like sun, because my city, we have sun every day of the year. So we could have the entire city just being run of solar panels, and if we had that, we could maybe even put electricity in all over in Brazil just by having solar panels here, because we have sun every single day.
You said it's 100 degrees every day.
It's still the money.
It's 100 degrees every day.
Almost every day.
Man, Ronnie, can you imagine?
Yes.
Can you imagine being in the air conditioner business in Brazil? Oh man,
yeah.
Ronnie, this is a revolution. This is the beginning of a revolution.
The sales of air conditioner is crazy.
Beginning of a revolution.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
The Tesla thing. It's unbelievable. I mean,
as long and this is me being new to the program here, so I don't know how everybody's perspectives are on things. As long as it's market driven, I'm all for it. If it's government driven, meaning forced on us by other non-market driven concepts, then I'm not so sure it's worth it.
Oh, this is purely a private enterprise. He just saw he said, there are
I think that they have gotten government concessions, Dan.
Well, they benefit. There's a $7,500 tax credit, Craig, if you buy a electric car.
I think there have been other concessions as well, but I love the electric cars. As you know, I've driven a Tesla. It's just amazing. I drove the Roadster, and I'm sure the S sedan is equally as good. I really question their comment that they're going to be able to charge these off of solar power. How many cars? I mean, I want to know the details. How many cars can charge at the charging station?
I agree with Craig. The devil is going to be in the details, and the long-term devil is in the details. I mean, this might be great for 6 stations around the LA area, but how this is going to work in Seattle is another question. How this is going to work in the Northeast is another question.
This is vague.
Exactly.
My speculation here is this is going to be similar to carbon tax credits, where as long as over in all the places combined, Alan, you are in fact generating more electricity than it all evens out.
But Steve,
clearly, in Massachusetts versus Florida, there's going to be a gap.
The problem is our electric grid doesn't quite work that way.
I think that I think that it could very well be a pipe dream. I'll put it this way: these electric cars, and you may think that there have been tremendous strides in battery technology, and they do have the lithium-ion batteries that are very expensive. But if you look at all of these battery technologies and you line up enough of these batteries to power an electric car like that, you're still talking about a significant amount of charging current to charge these things in 30 minutes, which is what he's claiming. So a fast charge situation. You're looking at a lot of charging current to charge that car. I want to know how many cars in a day's time this charging station can charge. Let's assume the whole day is sunny. Let's assume you've got 12 hours of sun or whatever. And okay, you know how much energy these solar panels are producing under those circumstances. You know how much it takes to fast charge one of these cars in 30 minutes. I want to know how many cars it can charge, that one station. And we don't have these details.
It's I think, I forget. I got it real quick. I got to send a shout out to Sandra Han.
Yes, and we've got this
Do you
text
have
up
it here?
right now.
Yeah, we got it. We got it. That's awesome. Okay, so all together, y'all ready?
Happy birthday.
Happy to
birthday. Oh,
you.
wait. I thought that's a
Happy birthday
copyright
That's
thing.
a copyrighted song.
Happy
Don't sing
birthday,
that.
dear
Don't sing
Sandra
that.
or Sandra. Happy
Don't sing
birthday
that.
to you. All right, happy
Shit.
birthday.
And she gets a new Tesla for her birthday.
She does, and it's
With
free
the
to
charging
drive.
Depends on the duty cycle on these
Get
batteries.
that-
What happens if 4 or 5 people pull up at once?
Yeah,
You know, see,
here's
that's
the
what we
deal.
need to
This
know.
is
We
a
need to know
niche
the
product,
capacity.
though. This is a niche product. Not everyone can afford a $100,000 car. This is the begin. This is not the end. This is not the final solution. This is the beginning of the revolution.
And I was wondering if this will work on non-Tesla cars, like a.
No, it's proprietary,
It won't. Okay.
and
Well,
it's
then
not for
that-
everyday use either.
Well, I mean, that's something he should change up almost yesterday.
No,
should
it won't
be
work on
proprietary.
regular batteries, and it's not healthy to do this to a battery all the time. This is
He
not
could
for
very
everyday use,
easily-
Craig.
He could
This
very
is
easily rig these charging stations up with various plugs and so forth, so that a Volt could pull up, and so that a Nissan Leaf can pull up. He could very easily do that if he's going to all this trouble.
but it's not
anyway.
his job to subsidize.
Well, he can sell the
General Motors.
electricity to them.
But Craig, the catch is that all of these other ones essentially use their own proprietary ways to do the charging, and they don't necessarily have the fast charging ability that
Yeah,
he
but
does.
they could make it.
What-
It
what
doesn't
he's saying-
have to be fast charging.
But no, yeah, it does under this scheme. What he's saying is he's basically jumping out in front saying, hey, I've got the stations, I've got the technology. If you want to get in on this
Well,
technology,
Volt-
you
for
pay
example- well,
me, and you can get in on it.
For example, the Volt can be quick charged. Now, I don't know if it can in a half an hour, but it does have quick charging capability.
It's not.
the
Look,
point-
McDonald's isn't going to offer a Whopper because it'd be more convenient to have both in the same store. It's
Well,
not their
and
job.
I think
I
the
don't
bigger thing is that I doubt that there's just a switch that you flip and put in a different connection that makes it all work. I'm sure that there's a relative amount of money that you have to throw in addition.
Merit Builders is one of the contractors that builds these things, and he builds them all the time, and it's no problem at all to add different style plugs and different current and different loads and all that. It's not a problem. But the biggest advantage to the electric cars anyway is the lack of maintenance. There's a whole lot of other advantages to them above and beyond the fact that they use electricity. But we need to work together on this, and we need to, a proprietary system. Come on, I mean, if you're going to go to all this trouble to build all these charging stations, rig it up.
It won't
so
work
all
with
the
any
major
other
electric cars
car.
can use
It won't work with any other car, Craig. That's the issue.
Craig,
The other batteries
Craig,
can't
hey,
handle
do
this,
work.
and it's not health. Even Tesla, Craig, says that they don't recommend this can diminish the power of your battery if you use it all the time. This is not for everyday use. This is on the rare occasion that you drive across the state of California, or in the future, wherever, that you need a charge to logistically plan your trip. Then you can do it one or two times.
Non-starter. Then that's going to be that's not going to be.
The glass is always
Craig,
half empty.
Craig, I'm confused about something, and once again, I'm trying to figure out which Craig Ship I'm talking to here. Is this the same Craig Ship who has said that Google has the absolute right to do whatever they want on their homepage because it's their homepage?
Absolutely. Well, they have
So
the right
why
to-
shouldn't Tesla have the absolute
no,
right to do whatever they want with their gas station because it's
Tesla
their
can
gas
do-
station?
Tesla can do whatever they want, but it's going to fail. If they build it just to work with Model S Teslas,
Then it will absolutely succeed
nobody-
because they're going to be selling Model S Teslas.
Well, here's the great thing about
it's going to be a waste of a whole bunch of money and a whole bunch of time and effort, and I don't like waste. That's
Well,
all
here's
it is.
here's the great thing about Elon Musk. He likes to lose money.
Well, he's going to do it. He's going to.
But I think in the process of doing so, he's going to learn a lot, and he's going to learn a lot more than than General Motors is learning, because they're not learning diddly squat.
That's the other great thing about Elon Musk.
It's a publicity stunt and a pipe dream at best.
It's more than a publicity stunt and a pipe dream. It's setting the groundwork for somebody else to actually then taking it and doing something with it that's more widely spread. It's being able to say, hey, I've now got this technology, and if you want in on this technology, you pay me for it, because I'm not doing anything for free for you.
Well,
I think that he just wants to get the ball moving, and that's just the way that he operates.
Exactly.
Like SpaceX and however you say the company's name. This is just the way that Elon Musk operates. He tries to get the ball moving, and he hopes that people jump on it.
The ball is already moving. There are already a lot of people putting charging stations in. Merit Builder's right here in beautiful downtown Thurmont. He's putting in charging stations. He's going to be putting them in like Walmarts and different places like that. He's already installing them. So this is nothing new. Now, the way he's doing it might be a little bit different, but there will be charging stations, and demand will dictate
Craig,
whether or not they're successful.
Craig, go ahead.
Are you saying that the Tesla can only be fast charged, or the battery will be damaged if they do it too much?
Yes.
That's what it sounds like he's saying, yeah.
Yeah, well, the way it works...
It's not limited use then.
No, a lithium-ion battery is best charged through a trickle charge.
Right.
Long term. But what they're saying is a full charge overnight at your house, the Tesla has a range of 300 miles before, it needs another charge, which is more than enough for everyday use, going to work and back. But on occasion, when you want to drive, somewhere out of the way, it's a deal killer, because like if you can only afford one car, of course anybody who can afford a $100,000 car could probably afford a $5,000 backup or to rent a car. But
yeah, there's something
the
called a
idea
rent-a-car.
is that logistically, how do you use that vehicle that you like so much to go a long distance? So he's going to set up these stations for this. That's his plan, and I think it's genius. I hear Craig. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but
it's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, you buy an electric car to drive around town, to drive locally. That's what it's bought for. It's not
what he
for
wants to
driving
do
across
is
the
he
country.
just like in
ridiculous,
Israel.
Craig.
See, in Israel, what they did, they've got it started there. I forget what the company name is, but the idea is it was like a propane can exchange, Craig, where you would, because the fact is it takes to properly charge a battery, it's like a 12-hour process, and then you can drive 100 miles or 200 or 300 depending on what your price point is. And so what they said was, well, we'll just do it like a cell phone where you pay for a plan and you can just pull into a station and they swap out
Switch
your
the battery
battery
pack.
real quick.
They've done tests on that. The Unique Mobility Electrek that we were selling in June of 1980 had a battery pack that slid out the middle of the car. It had 2 rows of 8 lead-acid batteries, 16 batteries. You could slide them out. You could slide another one in, and it took about 15 minutes to do that, and that was their pipe dream as well.
And I've heard they've gotten that swappable down to even less than that under some current schemes.
Yeah, they were going to have these stations where you could go and swap these things out. I mean, you got to look at this. Has been going on for 25 years now. This is nothing new.
You've got to settle on a standard at some point to make it work. It's like beta versus VHS. It's like the long delay.
Well, but here's the real question.
In physical media for high definition television, the delay lasted so long that it was largely obsolete by the time they finally implemented it.
They are starting to standardize some of the electric vehicle plugs. They are heading that direction. I think there's only a few in use right now, maybe 3 different ones.
But it's hard in a stage of such innovation where you're still trying to figure out how to do it right, because none of the cars are particularly appealing. I mean, the Tesla is, but who has $100,000 to throw around?
See, but here's the thing, and I think this is where this is actually probably a place where I agree somewhat with Craig. There are probably better solutions out there that I think even would have been better for this particular approach. I think the swappable batteries is a much better solution. What that gives is the ability for these charging stations to still use solar, to have a stock of batteries on hand and constantly charging, and not have to worry about a 30-minute wait where you may have a backup, where you have possibly uncertain loads that need to be dedicated to the cars. You can more evenly even out the charge and use solar for that, or use other means as necessary.
Yeah, that's the model.
That requires a standard.
Israeli model. And the good thing about Israel is positive there is the towns in Israel are only 40 to 60 miles apart, except for the Sinai Desert. So you can drive around all day on electric there and get your car charged without a problem, except for the Sinai.
Okay, so we all agree this is a revolution.
Yes, I've got to introduce this from George Cozy.
Please.
This is great. You want electric cars? Don't make them run on batteries alone. Hook them up to the cable like the tram. We have pantograph technology since we gave up the horse and cart, and I think that's such a European perspective on this that it's wonderful. I love it. It's great. There are 2 cities in the U.S. that still have pantograph systems. I mean, it's almost unheard of technology in the United States these days.
That's amazing. You know, Alan, that's very interesting, because I wonder, as we look into wireless cell phone chargers, I wonder if one day, if you could build a city, the way Google is building, driverless cars.
Oh.
I wonder if you could build a whole town or city like Reston, Virginia, which was a city built, from a blueprint and then created to be like the perfect city, decades ago. I wonder if you could create a system where you had cars that could be wirelessly charged, and you had stuff all around the roads, and everyone just had to, get some sort of license or whatever to sort of reimburse the municipality for the cost of doing it. I mean,
what about if people just planned a little better and didn't drive quite as much as they do? And what about if people used like Hangouts and things like this to go to meetings and to be productive and so forth? What about if people started just operating a little smarter as far as how they get around?
That is not helpful in any way.
Next topic.
And the world will be a better place. Okay.
Well,
so,
no, I think Craig has an interesting question, but I think it's going to take us, a few hours to discuss.
It's a good segue.
Just to get
by the way, my Segway only takes 4 hours to charge when it's dead.
And then it goes how long? It probably goes a long way. It's probably like
22 miles.
What?
Moving on.
22 miles on a charge.
We were using a different segue, but that's a nice pun. Go ahead.
It's an intentional pun. I got it.
Indeed. Okay, so Alan, I don't know anything about this. I think you put this in, right? Hopefully.
I put this one in. This is one of those little changes that Google says they make dozens and dozens of changes every week, most of which are invisible or barely visible to us. Here was one where a Google engineer actually came out and said, hey, this change went live yesterday, and I want to talk about it a little bit. Basically, it's a nice small change that basically says that if you go look at the additional information about a photograph, you will now see the number of times that photograph has been viewed. It's not a huge revolutionary change. It's not a big thing, but it's one of those nice little additions that just kind of gradually improves Google Plus as it goes along.
What does that do for us, Alan?
It does almost nothing for us.
Okay.
Let's be perfectly honest. It does almost nothing. But for people who publish their photographs, this is important to a lot of photographers. They like to know how many people are looking at their photos.
Now, these
people have talked a lot about wanting to get this kind of information for posts.
Right.
People have talked about wanting to incorporate the rest of the Google monitoring technology.
Sure, this information was available before if you dug in a little further and went into the Picasa thing. So they brought it more to the surface. But the reality, from what I can tell with the little research I did, is that it's not really how many people have seen it. It's more like AdWords impressions. In other words, how many times has it been shown? Whether it's seen or not is totally different.
Yes.
So, Alan, on the counter issue, you know how the Hangouts on air, for some reason, people can't see the number of views?
Yeah, they won't show that in YouTube.
Why is that, and is that a temporary situation, or do we know why they're doing that?
If I had cosmic insight into what Google was doing and why, I would make an awful lot of money selling advice instead of talking about it on a show on Friday night.
Yeah, I have a theory because I'm big time into YouTube. I think it's because they're concerned This is a new technology. They don't know if people are going to want to watch something this stinking long. And so as a result, they need to wonder about, do we want to show a video on YouTube that happens to have 10 views? You know, they'd rather just let it be a question and let us wonder about it and let it potentially grow in its value just because there's more and more of them happening than try to document them by views, because view count is a big deal when it comes to looking at videos inside YouTube.
Now, as I understand it, though, the host still does have the instant number of viewers, correct?
Yes, the host can see it. If you own the video on your own video channel in YouTube, you know,
you go into Video Manager and you can see
Video Manager,
yeah.
Thank you. You can see what the count is. And there's people have come up with ways to guess, because if you sort a video on somebody's channel, you sort them by order of number of views, you can get an idea. You'll see where that video fits amongst all the other ones. Now you can see the numbers.
And now Ronnie, on the videos on YouTube, if somebody views a video that's embedded in a website,
yes,
I've noticed that sometimes that doesn't increase the counter.
It should, unless with one exception. If the video is set to do what's called an autoplay, then it does not increase the counter. But if it's just a regular user-generated click, meaning they click to start and play the video, then it's supposed to rank as an additional play.
Because I've done some tests, and sometimes now. Is it true that sometimes it takes a while for that to accumulate?
Yeah, and the magic number is 300. I mean, if you get a video right around 300, it will stop increasing incrementally until YouTube can verify from all the different servers all over the world and add up the numbers and say, yes, these are legitimate views, so now it'll jump from 300 to 2,000. Boom, just like that.
So you won't lose the views, it'll just take a while.
That's correct. That's how I understand it, and I've been staring at this for 5 years, so I hope I'm right. It could be wrong.
Related to that, we got another story this week about YouTube saying that from the Data Liberation Group says that now there is an easier way to download all of your YouTube videos at once.
Yes.
Do you have any thoughts on that one, Ronnie?
I saw that link from Dan. I really appreciate it, Dan, because I try to keep up for all the YouTube stuff, but I missed it because it wasn't YouTube. It was a data liberation thing. But it's related to YouTube. And so I think it's great. I went to test it, and my browser says that something's screwed up with my cookies, so I couldn't test it.
So those chocolate chip cookies? Or?
Yeah, I think they're chocolate chip. I'm not sure. So it's a great... YouTube does have a limitation. When you're in the Video Manager and you're trying to download videos that you've uploaded, you can do that, but only 2 at a time up in an hour. So they let you do it, 2 of them within an hour, and then you got to wait an hour, and then you could do 2 more.
Now, is that the original file that it downloads?
Yes. What
they say.
Okay, I can tell you this is an MP4 if you do it from within the video frame. Yeah, but on this new way, they say it's the exact same thing you uploaded is what you get back down on the data liberation thing. But the other method, if you're doing it from within the Video Manager, you get sort of a transcoded, reduced quality MP4.
Okay.
Let me ask you one quick question before we go on, Ronnie. You said it doesn't count if it's an autoplay. Is that is it a bad idea on your channel to make the first video autoplay? Should you instead put the settings on your YouTube channel to just have the the thumbnail up there? Now that we all have thumbnails, which is a huge deal, a whole separate topic we've discussed before, but. Do you recommend, because I know you're into this, do you recommend that people turn the autoplay on or not on the channel?
I kind of do, and there's a mix here. We're talking there's a difference between embedded video on some other website, not YouTube, versus YouTube. So autoplay on something else other than YouTube doesn't get counted as a view. But if it's autoplay on YouTube, then it is counted as a view.
Okay. And then, of course, another thing for folks watching, and Ronnie, I'll get a chuckle out of you on this probably, but Google why the number count is 301 instead of 300 on the pause, because that's an interesting story. It was an engineering goof in the code, and they've kept it. It's an interesting story. So have we done I've
seen the number actually get stuck at 302, whatever.
Yeah. It was. It
I'm
was
sorry,
a
I got
glitch in
some
the code.
delay
It's
here
funny.
going on with my sound.
Maybe it's 302.
Yeah.
Okay, so just a quick thing, Alan. I guess the movie trailers, they're now showing up in results. So if you are in Google search, that's kind of neat. It's just innovation. It just makes sense to give more information as quickly and as possible.
I think it's a reaction. It's attempting to react to Bing and Apple doing similar things. So I won't even speculate on who came up with it first and who tried to integrate it first, but
We'll wait for the lawsuits.
It's this continuous race to try to present actual data instead of pointers to data.
Okay, and then there was a thing I posted about today. I saw that. I'll preface this. Okay, there's the +1, which is the whole premise of Google Plus, right? In some ways, it's their answer to the like button or the retweet. But it's different. And I noticed on my profile, and Alan doesn't have this yet, and other folks have different ones. Like I forget what the other incarnations of this, but on mine I noticed when I hover my mouse over the +1 button, it says, it puts a pop-up that says "Great post." And I don't use the +1 necessarily all the time in that manner. Sometimes I'll use it just to say I've read it. Sometimes I'll get to my computer and I have 75 notifications and I have 10 minutes and I don't have time to read everything. But they've mentioned me or shared it directly with me or whatever. And so I will look at it and I'll read as much as I can. But sometimes I'm just acknowledging that I've been here and seen it, or for whatever reason.
Ronnie's got the example picture up now. If we can.
Okay,
cut to
yeah,
him.
I can. I'll show this here. Here's the example. It says "Great post." So this is a thumbnail, I guess.
This is actually three things. This is me reposting yours that says "Great post." It's me doing a mouse over on mine, which says +1, or what's it say? Let me see. +1 this post, and then it's someone else from somewhere else showing me a screenshot of his where it says "nice post."
Ronnie, real quick, do me a favor, hit Control+ a couple times and let's blow that up some.
I did, but it keeps shrinking down.
Oh.
I'm as far in as I can go. Actually, let's see if I can get there.
Yeah, and I think we've got a screen resolution issue as well.
Yeah, okay. Anyway.
We will have links to this, don't worry.
Yeah, it says "Great post," but I want to get your thoughts on this real quick. This is a minor issue at best, but Ronnie, real quick, what I know you posted on this. You have some thoughts, and then we'll go down. But I think that just like I've seen journalists, I'm a news guy. I've seen journalists on Twitter that will actually put in their profile, right on Twitter, which is a very limited space. They'll say a retweet is not an endorsement. And I have like a friend of mine, James Homan from Politico. I knew him when he was at the Washington Post. He says he'll frequently retweet stuff from political candidates from both sides that is just newsworthy. It's not an endorsement. It's just saying like, hey, this person said this. It might be something crazy or it might be something interesting or, whatever, but it's newsworthy. So he'll retweet stuff all day. That's not an endorsement. And by putting the great post moniker on top of this, they're sort of implying that a +1 is an endorsement. And in my usage of it, it's not necessarily so. So am I making a mountain out of a molehill here, or what do you think, Ronnie?
I think it's a little bit of a mountain molehill thing, but because I do believe a lot of people have different perspectives as to why they hit the +1 button. It could be just acknowledgement. It could be I agree. It could be I got it. There's lots of reasons why someone's going to hit the +1 button. So I would prefer, I think like you do as well, Dan, to just leave it saying +1 this and let it mean what it means to the person doing it rather than try to translate it to some other meaning.
Well, I've got two things to say on this. The first is quoting what Google Plus Help, the Google Plus Help that absolutely nobody in the world reads, says. It says, quote, +1s are everywhere. You can +1 Google Plus pages and stuff in the stream similar to the way that you'd +1 a search result on Google, which you can't actually do anymore. But ignoring that, it's a quick and simple way to show you like a particular organization or enjoyed reading your friend's post, for instance. If you ever want to undo a +1, all you have to do is click the +1 button again. So this was Google trying to define it once upon a time. I think it's a real problem, though, that Google never really made clear what in the world +1 meant. And because of this ambiguity, it just kind of stayed ambiguous.
I had an idea that I came up with when I heard this. I think they should have 3 numbers: +1, a 0, and a -1.
You know, on my post and on Ronnie's, we saw all sorts of crazy ideas. And I think it gets back to Cheese Point. We can't fill the screen up. I mean, there is white space, but we can't fill the screen up with all these buttons.
Are you all implying that there could be some UI problems with Google Plus? Please.
Maybe.
It's the perfect UI, Craig, as you know.
But we love the place.
Craig, what are your thoughts on this? We're milking this too long, but real quick, any thoughts on this, Craig? When you +1 something, is that always saying great post or an endorsement of some kind? Or
as I made very clear in your original posting, I can neither confirm nor deny that I've +1'd anything. And if I have +1 anything, I cannot confirm or deny that that means that I acknowledge that that post ever existed. For that matter, I don't acknowledge that Google Plus ever existed.
You must have
Oh my God! Okay. By the way, speaking of rumors, Craig, I'm hearing these rumors. Craig, I'm hearing these rumors that Google is going to purchase the Area Guides network. Is there any truth to those rumors?
No, and if Google Plus ever existed, I cannot confirm or deny that I was ever there.
That is so helpful. I sincerely appreciate it.
Anthony, I just wanted to make that perfectly clear.
Anthony, when you +1 something, is it necessarily an endorsement usually, or is it just sort of? How do you use that? How do you view the +1 button? Is it the same
I'll
as
answer
the
your
like
question,
button?
but first of all, let me say that I think if Google can create, just said this is what +1s are for, and this is the way you should use them, you're not going to get. I mean, there's still going to be a large, portion of the population that's just going to use them the way that they want to use them. The way that I use it, it's if I like the post, like if it's like a negative post, but by someone that's basically saying the post is negative, like oh great, an earthquake hit somewhere and killed all these people, like I wouldn't +1 that, even though the person could be giving a lot of great insight into it.
Here's part of the problem, though. We know that Google is using the +1 as part of their metrics for ranking what's hot. We know that they're using it for part of their metrics for putting things in search results into Search Plus Your World. We know that they care about +1s, and they're treating it at least as something of an endorsement. Whether it's a specific endorsement or not, we don't know. But we know that Google thinks that when you +1 something, you care about it in some way.
Well, measuring interaction of some kind has happened.
Right, and I think that's what they're trying to say is, we're paying attention to this number, therefore you should be paying attention to this number too.
Yeah. Final thought. It's their answer. The Facebook people are checking Google Plus out, and they're looking for some equivalent of a like button, and so they're thinking that that's what it is, and that's not necessarily how all of us use it. And my final observation is on Anthony here. Anthony, either you have a wide-angle lens of some kind or something's going on, because your filing cabinet appears to be like
Warped.
angled or bent in some way, and that's freaking me out kind of. What's the deal there?
I don't know. It might be a little bit of both.
I don't know what's going on. Maybe
He's got a special fisheye lens he's installed on his webcam.
something's going on, yeah. But I know now see,
It's dancing. It looks fine.
Anthony, who we just finally got to see what he looks like a week or two ago when he got his new cam, and now he's got a little better lighting than usual, and we're all excited about that. and but now he's cleaned up his room, so this is all very exciting to me. So
I gotta tell you, the light bulb has not changed. I mean, it's the same light bulb I've been using since Google Plus. So
something is better. Something's changed. But anyway, okay. So all right, the next thing is Google merges Trends and Insights. And I don't know who wants to talk about this. Maybe Ronnie and Alan here. This is kind of interesting because I don't know who wants to talk about this, because it was it's a useful tool, but it's sort of like a data mining tool, I guess. Alan, what do you think? What are your thoughts? You have no audio.
And ask Ronnie. This
Ronnie,
is more his field than mine.
No, I was going to say ask Alan, because I really haven't looked into it yet.
Well, Google
today.
has merged the Trends and Insights, and what it is it's.
I mean, it's basically part of their data mining and data analysis system. As all of us frantically start reading the article, because none of us looked at it before.
No, I looked at it before. I looked at it. It's kind of a nerdy topic. I mean, I'm being honest. But
it's nerdy, but
if you go to google.com/trends, and you will see the new version of Trends and Insights merged together, and you can tell us how wonderful it is, and we'll all read that post, or we'll +1 it, which is not necessarily an endorsement.
What I think we can get out of this, and what we can look at it and say is, this is the tool that a lot of people have been using for a while to create new pages that they hope will get picked up by Google, or new YouTube videos that they hope will get picked up by Google, get a lot of views and get them a lot of ad revenue. So the various information companies that were doing things like AskHow.com, various other places that are just kind of like page farms. They were using these tools to figure out what in the world they needed to make next, and what keywords to buy, and so that's the importance of this tool. It also has some various other esoteric things of interest, I'm sure. This is not something I'm a huge specialist in, however. So and I don't think too many of us are massive data miners and data mining exploiters, are we? Anyone?
Okay, so
no, and I think.
Go ahead,
I would
Ronnie.
say that the SEO world, in my opinion, is moving more and more social, which means it's getting more and more organic. And instead of trying to game the system, we're just trying to talk about what we think is important, rather than look to see what the tools are saying is important and then talk about it. I think it's more based on what we feel is important, and then Google's trying to quantify that.
Okay, let's bust through these things here, Alan. Google Maps goes underwater. This was kind of cool.
This was cool, and I actually
they're doing better. So it was funny that I saw a tweet, Alan, and then I'll throw it to you. While Apple can't find a deli on the maps, Google is mapping, the Great Barrier Reef or something like that.
I mean, Google Maps, actually kind of interesting. They released a whole bunch of stuff this week. The most interesting of which was this, the underwater imaging in a map, 360-degree image. It's basically like they took one of their I can't remember, their cars underwater to map portions of the Great Barrier Reef and off the coast of Hawaii. And this got added because I got a phone call this afternoon from my father, who loves underwater photography, saying, "Hey, have you looked at the new Google underwater images?" I'm like, "No." He goes, "Well, put it on the show." So another one of our fans are now steering our content. But when you actually look at the images, some of them are beautiful, and I will very deliberately use the word beautiful here. It's pictures of, sea turtles in schools of fish off the Great Barrier Reef. It's pictures from the reef itself. He had also indicated they've been doing hangouts from some of these dives, so you can see them live and in real time, not just the maps view the maps view of them. But these are wonderful things. And this is Google basically saying, look, we have this technology. Let's do some really, really meaningful stuff with it. Let's show people the beauty of the world. And I think that's tremendous.
Awesome. Okay, the next topic, I'm not sure who added this. Ordinarily, I don't like to talk about our guests after they've left, but are there...
I added it.
Okay. Ronnie,
Uh-oh.
I guess if you ask the question, the topic is any follow-up on Chi's statements last week on Hangouts. I thought Chi was awesome, and we always love it when he pops in the show. What are your thoughts? Because I guess you watched it. What are your thoughts on?
I watched it over and over and over again because what it did for me is it gave me some of the motivation behind some of the reasons why certain things are done certain ways for Hangouts. And as you probably know, that's a very extremely important interest area for me is Hangouts. And to understand some of the logic or the reasoning why it's done a certain way helps you anticipate what might happen in the future, that kind of thing. So what was amazing to me, and this is my takeaway, okay, was that Chi, when he was 10 years old, was involved with gaming, right? That's what he talked about. And so that set the stage for what is affecting the world right now. His 10-year-old experience while he was gaming. In the sense that the following, for example, a lot of people have asked, I want to be in charge when I have a private hangout. I want to run the show. And he's saying no, because what that does is it gives false authority to somebody, and people act strange when they're given false authority. And I can see his point, but look what it's done. It's affected everybody's use of Hangouts. In other words, if you're on a Hangout on air, you have authority. Like, Dan, you've got authority. You can boot me in the middle of my sentence if you want, right? But if it's a regular Hangout, you don't have that authority. And so therein lies the difference. Now, from a business perspective, if I'm doing a private or a regular Hangout that's not being broadcast to the world, I might want that authority. And it's sort of a democratic level of authority. If more than 51% kick somebody out, then they're out, that kind of thing. So I just thought it was interesting to see some of the motivations behind why some of the decisions are made the way they are, and it could have affected somebody when they were 10 years old, and now they're changing the world with it. Pretty interesting to me.
Yeah, it was great. And it is always, you always get little nuggets of wisdom and insight and interesting things about the evolution of this whole, magic that we're in right now. We're in a Google Hangout, producing this show. And
right.
So it's awesome. It's a wonderful technology. It would have cost over $10,000 20 years ago to have a conversation like this from folks around the world. And here we are, 20 years later, and it's completely free. And there's some cost to Google. I mean, I imagine a significant cost.
Yeah,
but in terms of actual bandwidth usage and infrastructure and labor and all that stuff. But it's amazing. As someone, I remember I did my first TV commercial in 1987 or 88 or something. And now with a $700 camera, you could produce a better quality commercial than we spent a ton of money with a camera crew doing, right? And with a $500 program, you could accomplish the kind of editing that would have cost you, an edit bay with, a geeky guy, working it and all that stuff. So it's amazing how this has happened. It's always interesting to see the motivations and the little anecdotes that were the stepping stones to the products that we end up envisioning.
Right, and I think the motivation behind the scenes, besides all the techie stuff, when all the techie stuff's very interesting to some of us, but the motivation behind why you're doing the Hangout and what you can do with a Hangout, it's just incredible to me to see how it's developed and where it's moving. And to me, this stuff. One second, Alan, I'll finish up.
Sorry, go ahead.
To me, these Hangouts on air or just regular Hangouts are the secret weapon of Google+. To me, what it does philosophically is it allows people to connect in ways that there's no other way they could do it. If they're just typing, you have a different connection when you're inside of a Hangout, when you meet someone in a Hangout. Even if it's only once, from that point on, your connection when you're typing with them feels different. And as a result, I think these Hangouts are magical for the platform.
Absolutely. Alan?
Two things. The first is, if you like that kind of insight, it's one of the things that the Google Developers Live is doing. They've been doing quite a few video shows, mostly on technical subjects. But one of the things they do every Thursday is they have a GDL video, usually with about 4 of their engineers, talking about gaming. And they're not talking, sometimes they get a little technical. Sometimes they look at various technical aspects of it. But for the most part, they just talk about the games that they play now, the games that they played historically, their perspectives on gaming. And all 4 of them are not engineers who are doing anything specifically with gaming in Google these days. One of them, Wolf Dobson, I've worked with quite a bit because he's one of the developer relations people involved with Hangouts and the Hangout API. Other ones are guys that work on App Engine, on Docs and Drive. These are people who are doing very different things all around Google. But they have this common thing, and they come together once a week to talk about it. And it's an interesting insight. And I think you had a really, really good point there, Ronnie, about how understanding some of this background really helps to see where Google is going. And it's not necessarily from the specific topics that people may be talking about, but it's seeing their background, seeing where they came from, and seeing how they're applying that in very new and different ways. And I think that's an excellent point.
Okay, let's segue
and I've forgotten the second one, so go ahead.
Let's segue to Chicago. Alan, tell us some exciting news for folks in Chicago. By the way, while we're talking about, it's not Chicago, it's Detroit, but they try to dig up Jimmy Hoffa's body for the 712th time. And
did they find it in the driveway?
Surprisingly, they did not discover Jimmy Hoffa's body. I just wanted to put that out there because I was posting about it because I posted the live video and stuff. And it was interesting because then there was a car chase and some hippie guy or whatever. But they tried to dig him up and it wasn't there. I don't know why all of a sudden when I went to Alan's Chicago topic, I suddenly thought of
mobsters. Yeah, I can't imagine why you'd think that.
I know it's crazy, right? Obviously an ADHD moment. But go ahead, tell us what's going on in Chicago, Mr. Furstenberg.
Yeah, this interesting story in Chicago was the mayor of Chicago says that he was been inspired by something that Eric Schmidt said. Eric Schmidt basically commented that while Chicago was digging up all of their streets to replace their sewer system, they might as well run some pipes so they can blow fiber through it later. And he said, that's a pretty good idea, so we're going to do that. So basically, he's laying that and kind of strongly suggested that Google may want to make Chicago their next fiber-enabled city. And if Google wasn't willing to do it, he strongly encouraged
Fiberhood.
Fiberhood is portion of a city. I was about to say that, but he strongly encouraged that if Google wasn't going to do it, maybe somebody else would want to do it. So it sounds like there are a lot of people who have come up with the idea of, hey, what can we do to encourage this kind of development? And it's a shame Craig isn't here because this really would have been him jumping out of his seat again, talking about how this is exactly what big government should be doing.
With all due respect to Kansas City, which is a wonderful place near where Sarah Hill is, and I have friends there. I got to tell you, if they got it in a big city like New York or Chicago or Atlanta, Dallas, a big city, it would be epic. It would be mind-boggling because the minute people think it's realistic that they should have it, they're going to start putting pressure on all the companies. I can't imagine how many calls Comcast and all these other companies are getting saying, how come I'm paying so much money for, 18 megabytes down and 2 up when I can get a gigabyte both ways
Yeah, but Dan, Comcast's response is going to be, "Oh, you have service? We can stop that at any time, you know, because we wouldn't want anything bad to happen to your data." Speaking of,
right.
mafia bosses.
I don't understand why everyone rips on the size of Kansas City. I mean, it's an NFL city, for crying out loud. Not even Los Angeles has an NFL team. So Kansas City is not some tiny,
Having an NFL team is not exactly, a ringing endorsement for a city, is it?
It shows that you have a strong TV market.
It's not about size. It's about media.
Having nothing else to do on a Sunday afternoon.
Listen, to draw a political analogy, Virginia, the race for senator between George Allen and Tim Kaine is national news, partly because it's a swing state, but partly because it's easy for the media to cover because they're all in D.C. So most of them live in Virginia. So that's why Virginia is getting such national attention, because of its geography. If this exact same situation, the same swing state, the same 50-50 neck and neck was in the middle of the country, away from New York and L.A. and D.C., it wouldn't be getting near the attention it is. It's geography. And Chicago is a city that a lot of people pay attention to, especially the national media, because their current mayor is the former chief of staff of the president, and it's a big city. So there is certain cities have perception is reality, and that's the case here. Where if Chicago or New York or L.A. or some city that was a major media market,
but Dan,
then it would have a bigger impact on the general public. As we've talked about earlier in the show, Alan, about how, what something may be a scandal in the tech world. Joe Sixpack is completely oblivious to the patent wars and Apple and all that stuff. If you go up to your average person, if any of us asked our mom or our aunt or our uncle or cousins about the patent wars with Apple, none of them would have a clue what we were talking about. It's law. They're not paying attention to this. They don't care. It's not relevant to them. Go ahead, Alan. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. One of the things you've got to realize, though, is that part of the reason why they chose Kansas City is because they had the ability to do something there. Even if New York wanted to do it, the cost to do it in New York would be horribly, horribly prohibitive. You got to remember, New York City didn't get cable for years after most of the rest of the nation did. And the reason why they didn't is because the cable companies didn't want to spend the money there. There are parts of New York City that still don't have it.
New York City, the infrastructure there is so old that they start to work on it, they're going to break so many other things, it's just going to be such a mess.
Right. I mean, the suggestion that to do this when you're doing and Dan, I hope you edited the YouTube comments.
I accidentally just...
okay.
So we'll just...
Okay.
Someone comment a bunch of stuff, please, so we can move those down.
You can X them out. You can trash can.
The reason why the reason why doing this in Chicago at this juncture is such a good idea is because they're digging up the streets anyway. So if they're digging up the streets to handle their old infrastructure,
sure,
it's a really, really good time to start, putting in some new infrastructure. Yep. So I think that's why this is a particularly opportune moment for Chicago.
Okay, so on that note, we will transition, and now I'm afraid to put up the.
You can nuke those comments, Dan, and I suggest you do so.
I did.
Okay.
I did. Kansas City is a wonderful place from Kevin Bryan, Wayne Burrell. In Australia, the government is building the national broadband network, which will bring fiber to every home. Got to wait about 5 years, though. And you're putting that up now.
Well, all of us have decided to put it up.
Okay.
I think the big catch with Australia, I think, is Australia's traditionally had really, really lousy internal networking, and not just lousy, but also very expensive. It's almost like Canada's internet infrastructure. So the government stepping in to try to do something is a nice attempt, and we'll see where it actually goes. But let's move on.
I gotta, yeah, and I gotta tell you to Willie Stroker 6969, you're really being an asshole, and if you could please stop it, it would be great.
You allowed to say that on air, Dan?
I don't care. It's just, you know, grow up. Okay.
Trolls are trolls. They're always going to be trolls.
All right. So a rumor, Nexus. You've talked about this, Alan, and the only thing better than starting Google Plus Week, because I've done all of the horrible, like, calling all the different stories to talk about. The only thing better is at the end when you're like almost done and you get ready for the after party. So tell me, you've talked about this $100 price point, but there's a rumor, it's just a rumor, that Google is preparing to introduce this year. I'm a little suspicious about this rumor, but, you know, it was in a whatever publication or website of some reputation.
As I understand it, it's of some reputation for coming out with rumors that are false most of the time. But
well, much like Google Plus Week. I'm just kidding.
It's
so
your
anyway,
show,
the
Dan.
rumor is that there will be some sort of $99 Nexus 7 tablet. I don't know how they could scale it down. I mean, there's no SD slot, you know, whatever. But Alan and I have a Nexus 7, and it's awesome. It's a great device. I recommend you buy it. I'm almost tempted to walk into Walmart, which my local Walmart has a stack of like a dozen of them in their case next to the Kindle Fires and the, you know, whatever, all these readers. And I almost want to like stand there for an hour and volunteer and just say, look, you know, just to spite Craig.
I'm an unpaid Google spokesperson.
Yeah, just to spite Craig and say, you know, hey, look at how awesome this is. But you've advocated for this. You think it's eventually going to hit that level. It's going to end up being a throwaway device, right? I mean,
well, here's the thing. What I've said in the past is, you know, I will make no secret. Last December, I bought a $100 Pan Digital tablet, knowing full well that it was worth about $100 and not much more. I still use it. It still has its uses as a $100 tablet. I think the primary focus, though, for the $100 price point is that's about at the point where a lot of people are going to say, look, I could almost give this to my kids and not worry too much about them damaging it. And I think we're seeing that a lot. Mike Elgin posted something about this several months ago, talking about how $200 was that price point, and I disagree with him on that point. But at the same time, a company released something called the Kobo tablet, almost exactly the same specifications as the Nexus 7, with a couple of slight differences. The two big differences were, one, it had software that was specifically tailored for kids, and two, it had a rubberized bumper around it, so that it, you know, might be a little safer for kids to drop. 2 weeks ago or so, we saw Toys R Us saying they're going to have a $170 tablet that looked pretty much the same thing as the Kobo tablet. In fact, there are now accusations they stole Kobo tablet's design. So, you know, yet another patent war that we got to watch. That price point is $170. Today, I walked into a wholesale club and I saw that they're advertising a kid's tablet for $160. And, you know, what its limitations are, I can only begin to imagine. But you're seeing the price point on the low-end tablets are dropping. And some of that was pushed by the Nexus 7. So is Google going to get into the fray? I just don't know. I don't know if they can. I don't know what they're going to cut.
Yeah, eventually you're going to see, like, it's going to... I remember an article in Popular Science or Mechanics, probably Science, that said that a Texas Instruments calculator finally broke the $99 price barrier. That it was the first calculator ever to be less than $100. And now it's almost like a business card you just hand out. You know, the solar power, they're so cheap. So now they're not even around because it's on your phone. You don't need it. But
there's a quote that I like from from the history of Commodore computers, who nobody remembers anymore, except, it's not even fondly in history.
Us, yeah.
But Jack Tramiel, the CEO, said, we need to release a computer for less than $250. And when his board said, you can't do it, that's impossible, he essentially pounded his fist on the table and said, if we don't do it, our competitors will. And they did it. They came out with the low-cost computer. And yeah, they cut a whole lot of corners to do it. But they did it. And over time, they were able to make more computers that were closer to that price range. So I think this is Google's, this was Google saying, we have to make a tablet at the $200 price point. And the competitor saying, well, if you're at 200, we've got to go lower than that. Otherwise, we're not going to sell anything.
Yeah, clearly Amazon is
Amazon's the one that threw the gauntlet down.
As they have done, and in fact, our next topic is similar. Amazon came out with, the new Kindle Fire and stuff. We talked about that before, but Barnes and Noble came out and they're taking on Apple, sort of, but really they're taking on Amazon. But they're introducing in my opinion, a very impressive, as far as specifications, line of tablets, and they're going big, right? They're I think this is another. It didn't get the media attention that Amazon did, and they don't have the footprint that Amazon does, but still, this is throwing the gauntlet out there, right, Alan? I mean, it's
I'm not even the problem with Barnes and Noble is that every time they release some tablet, something along these lines, they're seen as, well, Amazon did it, so Barnes and Noble has to do it too, otherwise they're sunk. And I think, it's interesting to me that they went and tried to do the video. They're opening up this video store, which is an area they've got even less expertise in than Google does. And Google, doesn't have much expertise in this area at all. They have even less expertise here, and they're trying to compete with Amazon. I just don't see how they can. They can have better products, and, looking at the specs, yeah, I can argue that they're better products, but I just don't see how they can compete with Amazon.
The problem I see that Barnes & Noble will have, maybe not currently, but down the road, is they keep on releasing these, relatively powerful devices at low price points, and the idea is to get people to go to the, the bookstore and, the app stores or whatever, stores they have. But instead of, using those interfaces that Barnes & Noble puts on the devices, people are just rooting them and putting, stock Android onto them, and, then it takes away the profit center that Barnes & Noble is trying to create. And eventually, I don't see how this model is going to continue to work for Barnes & Noble.
I don't need, it just occurred to me what I think would have been a great partnership, and it's kind of disappointing that Barnes & Noble didn't go this route. But I think a great partnership would have been if Barnes & Noble approached Google and said, look, your competitor is Amazon and Apple. Our competitor is Amazon and Apple. Let's team up and do this. That they would have gotten a lot better, a lot more mileage out of it, I think. It's sad in a little ways that they didn't go that route. Because I think having one more competitor in this space is not going to help anybody, least of all Barnes & Noble.
Okay, so I think it goes to Alan. I think it goes to Apple and Google and Amazon are really the only three companies that can make a subsidized tablet work, because they have this giant ecosystem and they can sell all these products. Maybe Barnes & Noble can, and I applaud their effort. I mean, I like competition. Like we talked about the Bing comparison ads that Microsoft is putting out. I like fair competition. I like fair analysis and comparison. I think it's good for the, for everybody, because it makes everyone up their game. I don't like this fairsearch.org crap where they're trying to criminalize their competition in Google. I think that's sleazy and beneath Microsoft, and I can't believe that Bill Gates would tolerate that. you know, it diminishes all the good work that he's done. That he would allow Microsoft to put out just sleazy, trashy, disgusting.
You know that Bill
ads.
Gates doesn't run Microsoft anymore, right?
He's a big shareholder, and I think when he calls, you know, I think that they answer the call. I'm guessing.
I think he's got more important. He's got much more important things that he's dealing with these days. To his credit.
But when his company that made him and allows him the ability to, you know, cure polio, is unfairly and, you know, trashing a competitor.
We just got this quote in, and it's a great question from Kevin. Could Microsoft make an Xbox subsidized tablet? And, you know, he's right. Microsoft actually is in a great position to take on the other three, purely on the basis of their Xbox 360 store, purely on the basis of their market that they have in this community. They could take on the rest of them. Whether they can actually pull it off is another question. But I think they could make a credible play. I certainly think they can make a more credible play than Barnes & Noble can.
What do you think, Ronnie, what do you think about the whole, are you going to rush out to Barnes & Noble and buy this new Nook?
No, I'm going to wait for the $99 Nexus 7.
Absolutely. Or better yet,
yeah,
the $200 Nexus
I do have it
9 or Nexus 10. Wouldn't that be epic?
Yeah. I have an Android tablet, and I am just kind of wondering when I'm going to do that. In fact, let me ask you this question, because you probably know the answer because you own a Nexus 7. Can you talk to it and it types for you?
Yes. Go ahead, Alan.
Ronnie, you said you've got an Android phone, so you're familiar with Android.
Yeah, out of the phone, but my tablet that I've got, I can't talk to it and have it type for me. But my phone I can, but not my tablet.
Maybe this is too personal a question, but what tablet?
You know, it's been a little while since I've looked at it.
Okay.
I think it's an Asus. I forget, Transformer or something like that. I forget exactly the brand name.
It's probably the Transformer.
Or the model name.
Those are the Transformer, the Transformer Prime.
I'd be surprised, because I know that that voice transcription was available all the way back in Android 2 at least.
Oh, it's been available on my phone for quite a while. Even my original phone. But the tablet never let me do it.
That's weird. I don't know why. But yes, I've transcribed stuff on the Nexus 7 on occasion. Not always well, but it transcribes stuff.
Because I find my biggest limitation with the tablet is typing. I have a hard time doing that. In fact, we bought this one thinking we might get the extra keyboard, but that was another $170 or something, and we just never went through the process of getting the keyboard for it. So I'm thinking actually some of these tablet uses, many people will end up just being there as a little portable TV, and they're going to start watching more and more movies on it, and that's probably.
I think that's what Google is kind of betting. It's clear that that's what the Nexus 7 was targeted to do, was act as a media player or an advanced ebook reader, not so much as a tablet. And that's just evident from the way that they laid out how Jelly Bean gets installed on it by default. It has all of these Google Play widgets all over the place, so it kind of screams, "Hey, we're a media device. We're not a tablet."
Okay, and then let's close up real quick. We got 3 more things here. The Field Trip app. This came out in the news. It's kind of interesting. I tried it, and I'm in Bentonville, Virginia, which is the home of the oldest known structures in North America. The Paleo Indians, they call them, built the first buildings, so to speak, in all of North America here in Bentonville, about maybe 2 miles from where I am right now, on the Shenandoah River. And there's the Shenandoah River, of course, and other stuff. So I tried this thing, and it said there are no interesting things next to you. So that was funny. But it's a beta app. I'm guessing this is this smacks of a 20% project. It's pretty cool and innovative. It's an app. Alan, give me 10 seconds. You get the app, and basically on an Android device, you run the app or you install the app, and then whenever as you're driving around as a tourist or whatever, it will you don't have to do anything. If all of a sudden you're passing by where the Gettysburg Address was given or whatever, it'll pop up and tell you, I guess. So go ahead, Alan.
If you're in Gettysburg, I have a feeling you have a pretty good idea. Anyway, I was actually surprised. It had some pretty good results for me, and for near where I live, which surprised me a little bit. It's actually a really cute app. It's cute. It's clever. I think it's a great idea. I can't wait to see how it develops. But my first reaction to it when I saw it is this points out one of the major deficiencies in Android 4.1 Jelly Bean, and that is this would be a wonderful integration with Google Now, but it's not integrated with Google Now. And that's because there is no way to integrate an outside program with Google Now.
Not that that's not been a recurring theme of all of the gripes between you developers and everything.
Well, the recurring theme being that sometimes Google does awesome work and sometimes they just miss the boat. And this is a case where they missed the boat, I think.
Okay, two other things, and then I'm gonna hit up Brad for a sec. There's a new site. This was funny. It's called replacementgoogle.com. And replacementgoogle.com was an answer to the NFL referee situation with the Packers. And it's just basically just try it. That's all I'll say.
It's also in response, as I understand it, it's also in response to the fact that Google and the NFL had some sort of partnership arrangement, which was announced around the same time as the bungled game. So that tie-in was particularly relevant with replacementgoogle.com, which I thought was pretty cute.
It was pretty cute, yeah.
And Anthony is our sports commentator.
Yeah, Anthony's a sports guy, and anything about and all things Kodak. But yeah,
just announced.
Anthony, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was just going to give a tidbit. Which Kodak just announced that they're not going to create any consumer products anymore.
What about my inkjet cartridges?
Yeah, explicitly they said that they're killing the consumer inkjet printers.
Are they going to keep
but
making
they're killing all of their consumer products.
Are they going to continue to make the ink, or am I screwed?
I just heard it briefly on the radio, but it sounds like you're screwed. Which is funny because this was the comeback plan, was the affordable, quote unquote affordable, cheap inkjet. But yeah.
Yeah, I always thought the whole inkjet thing is a scam. If you have an inkjet printer and you have a color and either a series of color cartridges and a black whatever, in most cases, when you're printing just a black regular text document, it's using all of the inks to make that black. And then you realize why, if I've only printed black documents, black text on a white page, why am I using my cyan, magenta, yellow, or my red, green, blue, whatever it is, with your printer? And you call them up and say, oh, it's to improve the quality. And there's no way to shut it off in most cases. It's a scam. A LaserJet is dramatically cheaper. And the whole inkjet thing, my newspapers, I can print a 40-page paper like this big, right, with 24 pages of full 4-color printing for about 13 cents a piece. Anywhere from 12 to 18 cents depending on the quantity of that paper. So the ink for that costs about $30 to $40 a gallon. Say $35 a gallon. If you have an inkjet printer, you are paying $10,000 a gallon for ink. I pay $35 a gallon. You're paying $10,000 a gallon. So that's more. Just so you know what the deal is with that. Inkjets are a disaster. Go ahead, Alan. I'm sorry. Then we'll get to our last topic, which is funny.
I just liked your lesson in math there. That's all. So that's more.
Which is
It's
more.
more, right?
Just
And I'm sure you caught the West Wing stealing from
But
Aaron
Dan, Dan, don't you always want to print in rich black whenever you print black? Isn't that your goal?
Indeed.
Yes, a little sarcasm there for the nerdy in the print world.
Indeed. And then finally, before we get to Brad, there's was a Google meme generator, allegedly, right? And it's hysterical. The story it's on is it Business Insider or Buzz? It's on BuzzFeed. Again, we've got all the stuff below the video, so you can click on the links that we're talking about. But it's funny that the best one is the one they put up front. They had a picture. The premise is, what do Google people do to kill time? They create memes just like we do. So they have this internal thing called Meme Gen, allegedly, and someone's, I guess, sent them some screen captures, and one, Alan, why don't you?
Dan is obviously laughing way too hard at some of this.
I'm laughing here.
All of the ones that I see at the moment that they showed were Melissa Myers jokes.
The first one's epic. Go ahead and say it.
Which one? I see like 5 or 6.
Yeah.
First ones. Accomplished tech leader finally leading a nonprofit.
Yeah, Yahoo, a nonprofit. I mean, it's
actually
just,
my favorite.
So funny though. What? Go ahead.
My favorite was, I'm missing her already. Can you buy Yahoo for me?
What's your take on this? I think it's legit. You think?
Oh.
Definitely. I'm definitely thinking this is not an official Google thing. This would be a 20% project for fun, and he shared it with a few of his friends, using the Google logo barely. It's not polished. I'm thinking this is, some employee having fun on his 20% time, and experimenting with the meme generation techniques or whatever. What do you think?
I don't know. It's tough to say. It could be. I think the only real evidence that I have regarding this is that we know that there used to be a meme generator built into Google+.
Well, also, looking at these, it's definitely intelligent engineer type people making these up, right?
I don't know about that.
Meaning their kind of humor?
Yeah, don't you think? I mean, the kind of stuff you'd see them posting on their private Google+.
Yeah, but it could be just one person that has that concept or, point of view and just sort of putting a bunch of these together. So it's hard to know if it's real.
Let me go to Brad. Brad, you just wrapped up your show, right?
Mate, I'm starting in about 10 minutes.
Oh, you're getting ready to start. Who you got on tonight?
We're talking with Jacko. He does a show on the internet called Cord Cutters.
Awesome.
Sort of with cord cutting and getting rid of pay TV and stuff. So that's really interesting to chat about that.
All right. So check that out. It's Tech Webcast Info. Is it live or just afterward?
Yeah, it's live, mate. Yeah, it's live.
You can watch it live, and then you got the archives there, right?
That's correct, yes.
Awesome. So you got an iPhone 5 finally.
Yes, I did.
And tell me, what do you think? Does it live up to the hype?
It does, mate. It's really nice. I like it. Easy to use, nice screen, nice apps. Just runs really well.
I think you're talking to me from underneath the Pacific Ocean because you tried to go to the local deli, right? What do you think about the whole map thing, the whole controversy about the maps?
I don't care about the maps. I don't use the maps. I don't really care about the maps. I don't really use it.
What about the navigation? Do you ever use turn by turn?
I do. I use an app called Waves. That's a great app to use for maps, for navigation.
So what else has gone in Australia? I heard that Steve Wozniak wants to become like a dual citizen over there, which is actually very difficult. It's not easy to become an Australian citizen.
Yep, it is. He was actually in one of the stores in Sydney. Was getting one of his phones activated here in Australia. I think it was at Telstra, I think it was.
Yeah. So what else is going on down under?
Not much, mate. There's not much to report on, really. Not much, really.
I think we talked like 6 months or a year ago or whatever it was, and I promised I would try Vegemite, and I haven't yet.
I haven't. What are your views on the iPhone 5? I know you probably don't like it, but
I don't know if anybody left in the hangout here has it. Do you? Anybody here an Apple user?
I'll discuss my iPhone 5 comments as part of the wrap up.
Okay.
Sure, Alan. Yeah.
Well, go ahead. What's going on, Brad? Before we wrap up, what was the most interesting stuff that you guys were talking about this week?
Well, as I said, we're going to talk to the guy from Cord Cutters. That's going to be an interesting show today. And Batty, really, iPhone 5, I love it. I don't care what Androids people say about it. They can get stuffed, and that's about it.
Now, I guess Cord Cutters, you're talking this guy's an advocate or someone who teaches folks how to find great entertainment without subscribing to conventional cable or whatever?
That's correct, yeah. He does video reviews and that sort of stuff, and on products on how to not to use pay TV and on different alternatives, to things you can use for your TV.
I think Barry Diller is sponsoring your show tonight. I'm just kidding. From Aereo. They were in the news today.
So Dan, what do you think of the iPhone 5?
I have no Apple devices, so I think I don't like Apple's the whole patent trolling thing and suing everybody, but there's no denying that Apple products are very well designed, simple to use, and this will come as a surprise to some viewers. When my 74-year-old mom told me she wanted to get her first smartphone, she was going from like a $10 a month phone or something. She wanted to get a smartphone, and I actually recommended that she get an iPhone because I thought it would be easier to use.
Definitely.
But I mean, there's no denying their quality products. They're well made. The cameras are fantastic. The design is intuitive. From everything I've heard, clearly, all my issues with them are just the corporate culture, the arrogance, that kind of stuff. But there's no denying it's a phenomenal product, and I think the iPhone 5 is probably, from everything I've heard, the best made phone out there today.
It is, and I think people are saying it's the fastest phone too. Yeah, fastest phone ever.
Yeah, there's nothing. I mean, it wouldn't be the number one product. You can say, oh, it's just because of Apple or whatever, but the fact is, if Apple split the iPhone off as a separate company, it would be one of the biggest companies in the world. It is itself a gigantic thing.
Apple is the iPhone. Apple would not exist if it wasn't for the iPhone right now.
Yeah, I mean, iPhone, they did it. They innovated, and it was Steve Jobs and his team. Yep. But I think largely, the fish rots from the head first, and it excels in the same way. So I think clearly there's, we beat up on Apple all the time. We're Google fanboys, and I don't like their corporate practices. But there's no denying that the iPhone is a phenomenal product. Come on,
Oh, yeah, definitely. The iPhone 5, it's so light and just you wouldn't even know you have it in your pocket. It's that light.
That's awesome. So you're all stoked. You're just wait.
I am.
You just can't wait for someone to call you.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah,
that's
cool.
Awesome.
What about Ronnie? What do you think, Ronnie? What do you think of the new iPhone?
I don't have one. I'm a Mac guy. I've been an Apple guy from way back as far as product-wise. But as far as cell phones, I'm an Android guy now. So I don't have the iPhone. In fact, when I was playing around with my second phone, I was trying to figure out, am I going to go with the iPhone or am I going to continue with the Android? And I decided to continue with the Android because of my connections with Google, my love of Google stuff.
Yep, fair enough.
And honestly, this was before the Mac controversy even happened. I like the way the Android system gives me all the stuff for free. It's all built in, and it lets me navigate very, very easily. When I'm in a city I don't know, I can just turn on the navigator and let Gabby, that's what I call her, let her talk to me and tell me how to get where I want to go. And that I'd asked some people with the iPhone, how easy is that to do in their world, and they had to buy additional products at that time.
Like
so, right on cue, here comes Craig.
Real quick, Craig, Brad, Craig probably
my
joined
ears were burning. I was watching. That's why I popped in.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So
you two have a big wet kiss. Go ahead.
So the iPhone 4S is a fantastic phone, and that's what I have right now. But by all accounts, the iPhone 5 has taken it to a whole new level. It's just a ridiculous level of precision. The quality of the unit, the fact that you can drop it from 4 feet and even further onto concrete, and the thing
Which I would
survives
recommend you do.
Yeah, and it's just,
But only if your paint isn't already flaking off.
it is just amazing by any measure, and I just hope that this forces an Android manufacturer, I don't care who they are, to rethink this rush to the bottom and to come out with a really high quality, high dollar phone that can compete directly with the iPhone, because I want to buy one. I'll be the first one to buy one. But they've got to raise the bar, stop this race to the bottom. Sure, there can be a lot of affordable Android phones, $50, $100, whatever, that's fine. But let somebody come out with a super high quality phone. They
Are you telling me that the Galaxy S3 and the HTC One X and all the Nexus phones are the race to the bottom?
They don't reach the level of fit and finish and quality of that iPhone 5. They just don't reach it. If they
I'd just like to point out that Dan's yawning at you.
Yeah. And if they do, I'll buy one. I'll be the first one to buy one.
All right, final thoughts we're ending the produced version shortly, and then we'll do the after party for whoever wants to hang out here. Ronnie, final thoughts. Tell me about your wonderful Google Plus week.
My Google Plus week has been great as usual. I think this place is phenomenal as far as being able to influence search results, which is a big reason why I'm here. And I think the ability to use the tool we're using right now, these Hangouts and Hangouts on Air, is just phenomenal. I am totally become a fanboy because of it. Prior to this time in life, I just really wasn't involved in social, but once I've gotten into it and I see how it affects search results, because I came to it from a video SEO perspective, and I'm just amazed at what it does. So to me, these changes that Fraser was talking about, with the Google authorship and things like that coming more and more clearly defined, is just sort of validating why I've decided to spend so much of my life stuck inside the Google Plus verse.
And now you can say you've survived a fairly long Google Plus week, relatively unscathed.
Yes,
you've done well.
Yes. So
fairly
far,
long? This isn't too long. We're only at what, 2.5 hours, 3 hours? That's
no,
nothing.
we're at 3. We're at 3. Yeah. But
It's-
thank you for inviting me. I appreciate the opportunity
Yeah,
to
it
be
was
here.
great. Thank you, Ronnie, for joining us. Craig, final thought, and we'll keep going if whoever wants to stay. Craig, final thoughts on this wonderful. How was your Google Plus week?
It's been a great week, and if we can just get these Tesla automobiles to have a 1,000-mile range and to be as bulletproof reliable as an iPhone 5, and
Drop it from 4 feet, right?
and to drive themselves, and to implement Google's self-driving car technology and to have them drive themselves, and if we can have high-speed internet, 100 megabits down and up to the car as we're driving.
And it's free, right? It's free.
And the exhausts are rainbows.
Then we'll be in Hangout Nirvana, right? We'll just be able to just black out all the windows, have a big 42-inch screen in the front, and just lay back and just be in a Hangout and be going to wherever we want to go.
Meanwhile, in Fantasyland, if Apple wants to make an iCar, they can make an iCar.
Everything I just said is doable. Let's do it.
Let's just do it. Nobody else has thought of that.
Nirvana. That's my last word.
Anthony, any final thoughts? What was the most interesting thing you saw this week?
You ask me this every time, and I should just prepare and have
You should prepare. You have 7 days to get ready.
No, I had a lot of fun in this episode. It was one of my more fun episodes.
Cool. Yeah, this is a good episode, and we appreciate. And I love your curved filing cabinet there.
Where'd Craig go? I was watching on air and I saw Craig and you guys need me in a hangout. I'm a doctor. I'll treat you guys.
Gary, real quick before I go to Alan to close it, tell me any final thoughts. How was your week?
Oh, it was a fun week. It was great. I was looking forward to Google announcing Mars, Google Mars Street View. I think that we're at the point where we could do that because the images coming back are absolutely fantastic.
You know, we had a comment from George Cozy, which I can't find quickly anymore, saying that he hopes they put one of their tri-wheel dune buggies on the moon to get, you know, street view views of the moon. And I think you're right about Mars, though. That's an
that'd be
excellent
epic,
point.
wouldn't it? If they could get with Virgin or something, you know, or the Tesla guy who has his own space thing. Go ahead. What you got there, Alan?
Yeah, I just wanted to pass this one on from Wayne. He said, try driving an iPhone 5, wonder where you'll end up.
Maps. That's a
You
good
know,
point.
it could be great fun though. You know, you don't know where you end up. Maybe you find something interesting.
Right, and if you
It's your bright
explore,
side, you know.
and if you integrate that with the new Google tool, you can find out where you are and hear all sorts of new things about where you end up. So
Really, this is
that's a great point.
This is Apple's entry in to compete with Google Plus to create their own social network. You think you're driving to see your cousin, instead you meet
But who
someone
knows who you'll
completely
meet?
new. Yeah,
But you click the randomizer button, right? The randomizer button, and you end up
the
somewhere else.
shuffle button.
Yeah.
that would be neat if if they could map the moon. That'd be pretty cool.
Somebody tell me where's the Kool-Aid?
Indeed. Okay, folks. Thanks for watching.
So hey,
go ahead.
whoa,
I'm sorry,
you
Alan.
missed-
Alan, go ahead.
So my Google Plus week, the funnest thing I had on it is actually Sreek and I have been engaged in this minor debate with Craig trying to chip in every so often about the iPhone 5. And it's been a fun conversation just trying to understand why it is Sreek loves the iPhone 5, what he likes about it, and trying to get into understanding why people like it. And for Sreek, it came down to it's fast, it's really fast, it's incredibly fast, and everything else he owns is from Apple, so there's no point in him going elsewhere. And I see that a lot, but it's interesting to understand the insights that people have into what's bringing them to iPhone 5. So it's been insightful to me.
Well, you know, the only thing I would say on that is, and let me click on Alan, so I'm not looking at myself. The only thing I would say on that is, you'd almost have to get somebody, and I haven't found anybody who regularly uses both. Most of us have one phone, right? It would be neat if you could get a test group to have the top of the line Android and the top, the iPhone 5, and on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday they have to use one, and on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday they have to use the other, and they force themselves to. Then you could really get a test, because it really, I go back to my sports analogy. They like the Cowboys, I like the Redskins, and we're not going to change no matter what.
Well, but here's the thing. Even with the person is not going to change, and that's fine. I can accept that. I still want to understand where they're coming from and what they're saying and why. And a lot of iPhone 5 users are saying they love it because it's so much better than the iPhone 4. And it probably is, and that's a fine answer. It's a perfectly acceptable answer. I'm not so much trying to say how does it compare to the Samsung to some other product. That's interesting on one level, but that's not what I'm trying to get. I want to understand why these people like what they do like, and
But the only
that's
way to
important
do
for
that
other reasons.
is to experience it. It's not rocket science. I mean,
In some ways, it is, but I'm trying to get into the heads of these
what
people.
you could do is you could buy one of these used iPhone 4s or 4Ss, and you can use it with Wi-Fi right in your house.
Sure,
And
I mean,
you can use the apps
and
and all that stuff, and at least get the experience. I mean, you don't need to make calls on it.
Supposedly you do, because the calls are part of the experience and part of what we discuss. But anyway, it's the subject of the thread. It's an interesting thread from Sreek. I encourage people to look for it if they want to get in on this conversation.
All right.
It was a fun conversation.
Awesome. So we'll go to the after party for folks watching the Hangout. I'll keep this going, and any of y'all can invite whoever you want. But just send them the link, and I'll invite my circles. But it's been great. We thank you very much. We are here every single Friday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Time, midnight or 1 a.m. GMT, depending on where we are with our crazy calendar. But I want to thank you all for watching. We love it, and we love the comments and stuff, and pro or con, whatever the questions. So thank you very much, and we want to wish all of you a very wonderful Google Plus week.